Report for today. It's Thursday, January 31st, 2013. This is a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagman. I'm the co-host along with my son, Joe Hagman. Together we are the Hagman and Hagman Report, and you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news and analysis, information you need to know in these perilous times. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet. Our home base is homelandsecurityus.com. And you can watch us as well as we are simulcast in high-def video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. And we want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. Joe?
Yeah, we'll be live on video hours 2 and 3.
Hours 2 and 3.
Third hour with Mr. Bill Salus.
Yes, tonight.
Perfect timing.
Yes.
He's coming on to talk about his new book, Psalms 83, and how it pertains to Israel as we see today. Israel continuing strikes in Syria, and more importantly, the United Nations saying that Israel must withdraw all citizens from the regions of Judea and Samaria. The recommendation came in a report issued Thursday by UN Human Rights Council, which has a history of passing numerous biased resolutions condemning Israel for various alleged crimes each year. Israel must, in compliance with Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, cease all settlement activities without preconditions. The report said, in part, it must immediately initiate a process of withdrawal of all settlers from occupied Palestinian territories.
Well, we know that that Israel is, well, first and foremost, the land of Israel, as it is right now, is just a sliver of what it was promised to Israel, the people of Israel, back in the early 20th century. And we know that the Palestinians, their home base is essentially Jordan. It was Transjordan before it became Jordan. And anyone who knows the history of Israel knows that they've been shortchanged. They both have the historical and biblical claim to the land, contrary to what is being touted in the mainstream media. So, and, folks, too, we understand the difference between the Jewish people and Zionism. We do understand that. So, we don't. Joe, it's amazing to me how sometimes people confuse. Well, how do I put this? People confuse God.
We'll put it like this: the land of Israel is God's land.
Correct,
as outlined in the Bible for His people.
Right.
Now, we have our land, and we have our government. They have their land as a people, and they also have their government.
Correct.
And they also have, it's God's land. So the Zionism stuff is, people relate that to the people who are in the leadership of the Jewish government, of the Israeli government, people who are, say or claim that they are Jewish, out of the international community.
Right.
That's what people refer to Zionism as. Now, the support for Israel that we all must have as Christians is the support of Israelis, Jewish people, to be able to live in that land peacefully.
Well, that's the thing, though. We could do a whole show, by the way, on, and we'll touch on this with Bill Salus. We could do a whole show on the historical and biblical claims of Israel, and we can do a whole show on the people,
the different the labels and the terminologies used to define groups of people.
Right. For example, the Rothschilds. A lot of people think, well, the Rothschilds, they're Jewish, and of course, the Jews own everything and control everything from banks to the media. Well, that's like saying Hitler was a Catholic or a Christian. It's just not correct.
I could, say I'm Jewish and go commit atrocities, and people say, oh, look at this guy, he's Jewish and doing this and that. It is specifically designed the way they claim to be Jewish, people like George Soros, people like, all these heads of the international world order, the one world government group,
right,
claim to be Jewish in order to give the people, the real Jewish people, a bad name. And it is written about in the Bible, in the book of Revelation.
Yes. But, the bottom line here is, without getting into the whole history, God promised that land to the Jews, and in fact, there has been a continuous Jewish settlement or occupation of that entire area since time began. We can't say that for the people called the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, that word was created actually in its current incarnation by Yasser Arafat. So there's a lot of history that people need to really understand and get through to understand the real story behind Israel and Jews and what have you. But as it stands right now, Israel is God's timepiece, and I think, and with Bill Salus coming on, I think he's going to explain how this Israel as God's timepiece is actually giving us indications or giving us an insight into how close we are to the end of days. And one thing about Bill Salus, he does back up his information, his books, with Scripture. And it's not a lot of room left for interpretation. It's pretty cut and dry. I've read his books. I've got his books. I've got a lot of respect for him. His research is pretty much on target. And for the ISRALESTINE, Joe, about the Psalm 83 war and the Confederacy of Nations, it's shaping up exactly as he painted in the book of ISRALESTINE. So it's going to be an interesting third hour with him. And
it should be a great third hour. Yeah. We're going to try and get him on. Should be able to get him on again. He had a scheduling conflict. After scheduling to be on with us, he realized he had a previous interview to do. That's why he's only coming on for 1 hour tonight. But so much in his book that needs to be discussed and talked about, especially in light of the new violence, the new rhetoric, and things that are changing in the Middle East and in North Africa and all regions surrounding Israel.
In December of 2008, I wrote an article about how the United States was not only going to abandon Israel, but turn against Israel. And I got a lot of flack on that. And you can go to HomelandSecurityUS.com and read that. I think it was in December of 2008.
I'm going to, because I don't believe you.
You don't believe me? But no, as it turns out now, we are arming Israel's enemies. We're arming the Muslim Brotherhood. We're arming people that want to annihilate Israel. And this can't be good, obviously, or it's not good, I should say, for America in terms of God. One of the books that I really like, folks, if you have a chance to grab this, and actually I bought like 5 of them at the dollar store for $1 a piece, hence the name Dollar Store. But it's called The American Prophecies, Ancient Scriptures Reveal Our Nation's Future. And this is by Michael Evans. And this book goes through the various prophecies with the presidents, various prophecies, and as we treated Israel, the curses that took place under the various presidents, or the blessings that took place under the various presidents since 1948, and even before that, but since Israel became a nation specifically. So it's kind of a book. It's kind of a great book if you have the opportunity to find the book called The American Prophecies, which is written by Michael Evans. It is backed up with Scripture as well, and it does have a lot of information in there concerning how each president since 1948 had treated the nation of Israel and what happened, since then. So it's pretty good.
Well, we're going to get back into the Middle East situation, but before that, we have Army invades Galveston, Texas. On Wednesday, residents of Galveston, Texas endured what folks in Houston, Miami, LA and others did earlier this week, an urban warfare exercise conducted by the U.S. military. If you hear a lot of loud noises in Galveston tonight, it's probably part of a military training exercise, KTRK-TV in Houston reported. According to the Galveston County Daily News, the Army is using the old jail on 17th Street for a night drill in urban warfare. 80 Special Operations Command personnel, in coordination with local law enforcement, violated Posse Comitatus on Wednesday night at the Houston Chronicle reported.
Now, I talked to Steve Quayle today, and I asked him, because this is really starting to bother me in terms of the frequency of these exercises.
Not only in Galveston, in Houston, in Miami, here in Pennsylvania, we had federal law enforcement officers practicing helicopter maneuvers above the Capitol. Witnesses described an action-packed scene at the Capitol in Harrisburg, PA on Tuesday night around 7:30. There were 3 helicopters flying low, practicing touch-and-go landings. People were also rappelling down ropes. Federal law enforcement came to the PA State Capitol complex to practice tactical maneuvers. See, Troy Thompson, PA General Service spokesman, explained why there was no early warning about the maneuvers. We didn't alert the public because there was no danger to the public by conducting the drill, and it needed to be an in-and-out type of drill for this particular law enforcement agency, he said.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I have a very bad feeling about these. I don't even know what you'd call them. Paramilitary drills. It seems to be really doesn't do it justice, because from the information I've received on a first-hand basis, these are like you're walking into a movie set of Die Hard or of something similar.
Well, yeah, in some cases, in other cases we see that they're doing these at closed and confined areas, but still there are the other half of those that are not done in private. So we had in the last few days these unannounced military domestic terror drills in Miami, LA, Houston, Harrisburg, Galveston, Texas, just for the military drills, not including the active school shooting unannounced drills that they carried out.
Right.
And, how much longer, how much more intense will this get?
Well, and like I said, when I talked to Steve Quayle today, and this is one of the things that Greg Evenson is going to be talking about on Sunday. Don't forget, folks, from 9 to midnight on Sunday Eastern Time. I know this may interrupt your Super Bowl party, but you can always catch it on archive, or you can mute the Super Bowl and listen to our show. But Greg Evenson has got a lot to say about these drills, and because he's got a lot of current law enforcement contacts on the state level, different states, and just from what I'm getting from Steve, they're planning this all of these paramilitary drills. This is against us, against we the people, against the people who are going to be unresponsive or non-compliant to the gun laws and that type of thing. So, man, I'll tell you, I'm not. I don't know about you folks, but I am not. These aren't sitting well with me.
Yeah. I got some other interesting news here. Arkansas town's martial law plan, starting from the original report. Following the rise of violent crime in Paragould, an Arkansas town of around 26,000 residents, the mayor, police chief, announced that starting this month, police will be wearing SWAT gear and carrying AR-15s while patrolling the streets. If you're out walking, we're going to stop you, ask you why you're walking, and check your ID, says Police Chief Todd Stovall from a December town hall meeting.
No, wait, is this? This is not from. I mean, this is new.
Yeah. Well, this came out in December. that they announced these plans.
Right.
And it goes on to say...
but, I mean, so this is a whole new exercise.
Correct. But there's an update from today. According to local news reports, the police department canceled 2 of the subsequent town hall meetings to discuss the heavy-handed policing plan following outrage from the residents of Paragould. The police cited public safety concerns to cancel meetings. Meanwhile, Paragould's mayor has reportedly dialed back the rhetoric around the amped-up policing proposal. And according to the Arkansas Times, the mayor said patrolling police would not constantly be carrying assault rifles. Although announced to begin January, no SWAT patrols have begun to patrol the Paragould yet.
Don't forget, now a lot of this, I mean, those people who were alive and or adults or can remember the riots of 1967, especially in Detroit, we had tanks. Remember that we actually had National Guard tanks going down the streets of Detroit, for example. You know, we saw this back in 1967, 68, for real. But now, this is something totally different. This is something that is coming out of left field, and I think that we really need to pay attention to these exercises. I've been getting reports from North Carolina, from Florida, different from the ones you've heard, and also from the place in New England, New Hampshire. I'm sorry, New Hampshire. That there are drills with helicopters and paramilitary people.
And this drill that was conducted in Galveston, Texas, was part of a joint state exercise where they brought in people from Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Which we talked about this last night. Fort Bragg, you know, the home of Delta Force, I believe, right? Isn't that? I think we mentioned that. So, are we watching a progressive conditioning process for the American people, or are we watching something more? You know, I would think that the townspeople should be, at the very least, indignant that they're being used as really guinea pigs in a paramilitary training exercise. And the militarization of the local police agencies, this stems from the federal money going into the police departments. With the strings, you will fortify your forces, militarize your forces, and cooperate with the federal authorities. What about the Posse Comitatus Act?
Well, that's no longer an issue because it was done away with.
When? And where's the memo?
To my understanding, it is part of a presidential directive. And, I mean, we saw what happened in Katrina. We saw that, I think 2007, if my memory serves correct, 2007, either officially, unofficially, fiat rule, definitely wasn't done in front of Congress, but to my knowledge, in 2007. And right. Actually, it probably stems back to the Patriot Act.
Well, there was an issue, or there was a white paper written, and I don't recall where or who wrote it, other than the fact that I believe it was a gentleman with a law degree about the Posse Comitatus Act not being enforced anymore. And I just, it just makes me wonder. And I just have to say, I know that we're being heard in cities like Galveston and other locations where these drills have taken place. I just wonder what the townspeople feel right now about this. And we can't. I mean, the American government cannot. The federal government cannot use the military to enforce state laws. The training exercise. Well, folks, how do you feel about this? I would be interested in getting your insight into this.
We'll take calls starting at the
top of the next hour.
No, I think we should do it in 10 minutes. give people a good hour and a half to call in before the guests come in.
That's fine. That's fine. We can do that.
And here, just Posse Comitatus is a loosely organized far-right social movement that opposes the U.S. federal government. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the organization. That Posse Comitatus Act, according to Wikipedia, the Posse Comitatus Act is the U.S. federal law that was passed on June 18th, 1878 after the Reconstruction and was updated in 1981. It was limiting the powers of the federal government to use federal military personnel to enforce state laws. Contrary to popular belief, the act does not prohibit members of the United States Armed Forces from exercising law enforcement agency powers within a state. I want to know who wrote this.
Well, the bottom line, we are being subjected to a massive display. Well, what do you mean?
The United States Army is also the United States Armed Forces. Aside from the National Guard, is the only agency that may be brought in times of distress under the Posse Comitatus Act.
Right.
But this is saying that United States Armed Forces are exempt from this. And that may be true now. Maybe this is updated, since the NDAA, the Patriot Act, the shredding of the Constitution.
Well, all I know is something, obviously, I think we can all agree that what we're seeing right now is a run-up to something. What that something is, it's hard to say. Like I said, I know that Greg Evenson has his contacts. They're saying that this is not only conditioning but preparation for a civil uprising. And folks, if you remember, according to my DHS Insider, and yes, folks, there will be an update coming. I promise. There's some. It seems like every day there's a new issue that happens, either personally or professionally here, to kind of really screw up the timing. However, that will be coming. But back in the spring of last year, I had written that according to my DHS source, the DHS was preparing for civil war, and I got a lot of flack on that, if you remember. Yet now we're seeing the display.
Full force.
Full force, indeed.
And people are, I've heard different people talk about, well, we learned it was just a drill, so after learning that, we were more at ease. Well, what about the next time? What if it's not a drill? Are the people just going to assume it's a drill?
You know what? Let me go to
While you do that,
to this, because I'm interested in finding out. By the way, on HomelandSecurityUS.com, if you folks, I don't know if you've seen this public service.
It's just as good as the DHS run, hide, and fight survival video.
Honest to goodness, grab scissors. I mean, as a weapon of opportunity to fight against, if you have to fight against an active shooter. It's sad to see the Department of Homeland Security putting out videos like this where, to teach you how to run and hide. The article that I wrote is called Rock, Paper, Scissors. It's only about 2 paragraphs, but it is linked to a video that, to me, is wow. It's crazy. It reminds me of the old 1950s hide under your desk, duck and cover when an atomic bomb is going off outside your window. Seriously.
No, it's messed up. While taking away your rights to defend yourself, they're saying you should defend yourself with weapons that are insufficient when, in conflict with somebody who has the illegal weapons.
What is this? Of course, what was Sean Connery saying? Bringing a gun or a knife to a gunfight or a gun to a knife fight. It's just all wrong. It really is.
Yeah.
But the one thing I just wanted to mention too, December 16th, 2011, I wrote an article called "Preparing for Martial Law," and this was referencing the NDAA 2012 bill at that time. But it was also this article also talked about the preparation for DHS, for government agencies to prepare for what was described as civil war. It's coming. I mean, it's coming. Preparing for martial law, and I think that we're seeing through these exercises. I think we're seeing this being planned out.
And North Korea leader Kim Jong-un issued a secret order to complete preparations for a nuclear weapons test between Tuesday and yesterday, and carry it out sometime soon, according to one of their news sources. Kim also reportedly said the country will be under martial law starting from midnight, January 29th, and all the frontline and central units should be ready for war. North Korea state media reported Sunday that Kim Jong-un convened an emergency meeting at the top defense and security officials on Saturday. It said Kim made a stern command to take effective high-profile state measures and assigned specific tasks to officials. These measures were sparked by new sanctions unanimously passed by the United Nations Security Council on North Korea entities and individuals, including travel bans, assets freeze, and the media said, according to the media, the reporters boasted speculation that Kim is preparing a third nuclear weapons test. So North Korea going under martial law and preparing for battle.
Well, it seems like we've got hotspots now. We've got North Korea, you've got China now and Japan, and you've got India. All of these countries are recognizing that the United States is coming unglued, in my estimation, and because of that, they are flexing their military muscles. That's what we're seeing, and we're seeing it's almost as if it's an orchestrated or a planned. The world war coming. I mean, can we not see it take shape right now? Of course.
Oh, and I asked you the question before the show. Would it be possible, do you see it in this time period where somebody could decide that they want peace or a peace deal through all this nation rising against nation rhetoric and actions we're seeing taken?
Well,
but I think Bill Salus will clear some of that up.
Yeah. I think this all relates to Israel as God's timepiece and the world war. Where's the spark going to be? Where's the first spark going to be? Is it going to be in the Middle East, or is it going to be somewhere in Indochina? I mean, or Southeast Asia, or or in Asia, perhaps? I don't know. But here on the domestic front, I just want to go back to May 7th of 2012 when I wrote the planned re-election of Obama, revolutionary style. This was the article that introduced my DHS insider by the name of Rosebud. This was the article that said the DHS is planning for a civil war or civil uprising. And this was the article that stated that DHS is taking their marching orders directly from the Obama administration, from Obama himself, as well as his unappointed czars and Valerie Jarrett. And once again, according to my source in this article, speaking domestically here, because the majority of people who listen to this program still currently are in the West. We're talking United States and Canada. According to my source, the DHS heads don't really care what the American people see or feel about what the DHS agencies are doing. They've gone past that. They are now, and we're seeing this take place, like you said earlier, or like we talked about earlier, the drills. And now one more thing here. According to my source at that time, and let's see how this is stacking up over the course of time here. Again, May 7th, 2012 is when I wrote this. According to my source, there's a revolution going on in the U.S. Propped up by three legs: economic chaos, chaos through racial division, and chaos through class division. And the core element here is Barack Hussein Obama and his stable of unelected czars. And Obama is using lessons learned from 1968 as a template for 2012. And those who were active in the late 1960s are not now calling the shots. And Larry Grathwell had really said that too, where the people who were the domestic terrorists back then, the Weather Underground and the Students for Democratic, the SDS, and other organizations, were in fact, are in fact now in charge, or at least advising those people in charge.
Yeah.
So there you have it. So was my source correct? Of course. And let me just finish it up with this. The Obama administration, according to my source back then, they are working closely with Bernanke, Geithner, and others, not to save our economy, but to destroy it. And we've seen now with the headlines of late that our economy is worse. It's contracting rather than getting bigger. This is on purpose. This was a process that was started a long time ago, involved the Clintons and others. It's something that is continuing today. So now the racial divide, remember the Trayvon Martin case. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And the racial strife that's coming is going to be exacerbated by the economic strife. The planned end game is the people who are in power, they're going to remain in power until their job is done, that according to my source. And I'll just close it up by saying this. Henry Kissinger, speaking at the Bilderberg meeting in Evian, France on May 21st, 1992. Think about this. Today, Americans would be outraged if United Nations troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened their very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will plead with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by their world government. And this is what we're seeing right now.
Phone lines are open if you want to call in. 661-244-9839 is the number, and we'll be taking your calls. Two headlines quick. Super Bowl fans to face mandatory TSA pat-downs. This year, New Orleans fans attending the Super Bowl at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome will be watched, sniffed, and pawed, as well as receiving mandatory TSA pat-downs as they enter the stadium. How nice. The NFL and NHL both have teamed up with the Department of Homeland Security in recent years to expand TSA's security grip beyond roads, beyond airports, beyond anything we've seen, into football and sporting events. Also, this is an interesting story. Hundreds of birds washed up on the south coast of the UK, covered in an unidentified creamy, waxy substance.
Now, explain how that would have to be something I would imagine, and we went through this before airtime. That would have to be something from the air, one would imagine, that would coat the birds, or the birds would have to go through something in order for this to happen. Would that not be the case? I mean, what other explanation could there be? And if that is the case, what was it, or what is it? And it's my understanding they're doing some tests on the birds and what have you. Whether we get the full story on this, don't know.
Yeah, they sent them for test to a lab, so hopefully we'll see what this unknown substance is. We're going to go to the phone lines.
We're going to take your calls right now.
Area code 530. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hello.
You're up. What's up? What's on your mind?
This is John. Can you hear me?
John. Yes, we can.
Hey. How you guys doing?
Very well. What's on your mind tonight?
I didn't think I'd get to talk to you.
Surprise.
I was just sitting there listening to you guys, and I've listened to you guys quite a few times. I was wondering what your take was on the rapture. What's your take on that, Doug?
Wow. On the rapture?
Yeah.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. Here's my take on it. The rapture. Anytime that word is mentioned, it's people are divided. It's one of the most divisive things, and that one of the most divisive topics among Christians I've ever seen. I'm absolutely dumbfounded by the rabid nature of people who say the rapture is going to be pre-trib or post-trib, or I'm astounded by that. But my personal take on it is, frankly,
it doesn't matter.
I don't know, and it's not going to change my behavior. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I hear you. I hear you. The reason I mentioned that is because I remember when you had Doc Marquis on your show, and you guys were kind of talking about he was going to post his findings on it on his website. It's a God thing protection, it's a godlike productions. And I looked at it, and in fact, I cut and pasted it, and I sent it to you guys. I don't know if you got it. Have you looked at that rapture deal that he has on his website?
Yeah, I have the full document.
Yeah, I sent that to my pastor, and I said, what do you think of that? He says, it's right on to what I believe, to what I've been taught, what I've learned from the Bible. And he said, I agree with it 100%. The actual word rapture is not in the Bible, and if you looked at it on Doc Marquis' website, I think it explains it pretty well. I don't believe God has appointed his church to wrath. He's not going to punish us. And I believe the rapture is going to happen soon. And I believe it will happen during the Rosh Hashanah of the Jewish feast. I mean, if you study the Jewish feast, everything God does is it's pointed out in the Jewish feast. And the church, the rapture would be the first fruits of the church. And I just don't believe for one second God is going to make us go through a tribulation. Yeah, we're going to see some stuff. We might see martial law, but I don't know. But a lot of people would not make it through what you guys are talking about. It would be too much. I just don't believe we would.
Yeah, I do.
What if we do have to go through it, though? Shouldn't our faith in the Lord and the protection he carries over us keep us safe in that?
He does that every day. He does that every day.
And why would that not? Wouldn't that continue in tribulation and in good?
I think the most important thing we can do is win souls for the kingdom.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love Steve Quayle, and I love you guys, but I think sometimes you go a little overboard with what's going on in the world. I really do. I think we need to start preaching the gospel, pointing people to Jesus.
Well, we try to balance. Look, caller, we try to balance out. We try to give. We try to report what's going on.
I know
through.
I do too.
But we try to do it through the prism of biblical scripture. Through a biblical worldview. Which you don't normally get. Well, you don't get on any of the cable channels or any of the talking heads on the AM stations. What you do with that information is up to you. We try to take the most important information, provide it to you for your own discernment. That's what we try to do.
I know you do. I'm not knocking you, Doug. I know you do.
Well,
but you mentioned Posse Comitatus thing. That doesn't apply to us anymore, as you probably know. I was in the National Guard, and I've heard and seen some things, and they're going to do everything they say they're going to do. And God has put Obama in office for such a time as this, and judgment has come to our nation, and we are going to get spanked really hard. But the good thing about it is a lot of people are going to repent with what's coming. So I just want to say thank you guys for what you're doing. And God bless you. And stay close to Jesus.
Thank you. And we in fact, we will stay close to Jesus, and we thank you very much for being a part of our program.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
God bless you, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to move right along here. Area code 937. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Very good. What's on your mind?
Okay. Sorry, I can't hear you. It's a little time delay. But, yeah, you know, I'd just checking out your guys' website, you know, I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing so far. You know, I would like to say that there's I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but when Barack Obama actually got voted into office for the second time this past January, there was a bill signed. I don't know if you guys have heard of SOPA and PIPA, but he signed it. It was like a behind closed doors thing. And, you know, I know some people who know some people, and they said that, you know, they're doing this whole deal to start filtering internet search results from 9gag.com. And it's really interesting because, you know, it's turning into China. I mean, you know, it's rustling my jimmies pretty badly. I don't know if you've heard anything about it or internet censorship, but it's a really interesting topic, and I mean, you know, I'm actually quite upset about it.
Yeah, we have heard about it and actually have some documents on it, but we have yet to see anything, at least I have yet to see anything except, you know, you see the crackdown on Facebook. They want more information. Some internet service providers are getting hassled over content, but I have yet to see a real crackdown.
But I think, caller, are you talking about? And
I'm looking for this.
I've heard about this from various sources. Are you talking about the redirecting? Okay, for example, if you would use Google as your primary search engine. If you type in, let's say, Obama birth certificate, just as an example, the number of results are trimmed down, and you're actually directed. The results are weighted, for example, toward sites that are favorable to Obama and his legitimacy. That type of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, see, I mean, I'm actually browsing 9gag right now, and I mean, I'm seeing everything on the front pages, you know, Obama this, Obama that, spaghetti fell in my pocket this, and I mean, you know, it's astounding. Like, I don't even know. It just doesn't feel like, you know, we're even in our own country anymore.
No, I mean, I agree with you on that. I've noticed that different search engines, Google perhaps is the worst of the worst. They are actually weighting, or there's a bias to the search results depending on the criteria in which you use. So, and it's my understanding what you said. Right after the election, there was a closed-door meeting with, in fact, it involved Microsoft, I believe, people from Microsoft, as well as Google and other, there were two or three other big companies that are involved in this. So you're right. This is kind of like a China scenario here that we're undergoing. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. And people aren't hearing about this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of the actual site, 9gag, but I was on the Internet yesterday, and they, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard of Anonymous, but, you know, this whole 9gag thing, you know, it's catered to, you know, a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds, and, you know, they give them these, you know, I'm a computer science major, and they give them all of these, you know, poorly made, quote-unquote, hacking tools. And they send them, and then, you know, they try to, you know, break servers like, you know, Walmart or, you know, Reddit or something like that. And it's, in my opinion, it's a total government ploy. I mean, if you look at China and the restrictions that they have on their service, you can't get on, say, Drudge Reporter, Fox News, or, BillO'Reilly.com from China, obviously, because, and quite frankly, it's China. But I mean,
right.
This website, I mean, I'm sure you could look it up, but I mean, 9gag, it's catered to children, and they don't know what they're participating in because they can use their computers as slaves. I mean, the whole thing just wrestles my jimmies. I don't even know.
Yeah, 9gag is actually, I wouldn't really call it a search engine as much as I would call it a social network. And folks, if you haven't heard about it, it's the number 9 in the word gag, G-A-G, 9gag.com. And their tagline is "Life is a gag, make it fun." And it's the largest fun-sharing community in the world, according to their tagline. And it's kind of like the old, remember the old CompuServe? Well, you're a computer science major, so yeah, you probably remember like the old CompuServe communities. To me, that this is what 9gag is. Now, am I wrong in that description, or that describing it in that fashion, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's accurate to a point, but the main qualms that I'm having with this website is, I mean, sure, it'd be one thing to post up like a blog, go here if you, hate whatever, if you support whatever laws that they want to do. But the point is they're masquerading their affairs. I mean, you market it to kids. You put advertisements on it from Google, and I mean, most people don't really know this, but Google, most people who work for Google, in my opinion, I've met a lot of people, they're anonymous, and they work with websites like 4chan and its counterpart, ChoreFan. It's a weird website, which I've actually only seen once, and it'd be one thing to say it plain and say, if you don't like what's happening, please, do this, that, or the other thing. But the point is they're suckering innocent people into 9gag, and before they knew it, they're in over their head. I mean,
exactly, and they're not exactly the 9gag website. And I'm glad you brought this up, because I've had a couple of people email me about this. It's when you say they kind of suck young kids into this, it's kind of a cartoonish site, but it also has this globalist agenda bias where, I mean, for example, I'm looking at it right now, and what's trending is this Asian Snow White photograph, which is, it's just not. It just doesn't set well with me. And then it goes down into the Toy Story stuff, and you're right. You're correct. Definitely. I mean, so we are being manipulated online. Very much so. Yeah. What can we do about it, though? You, sir, you're being a computer science major. How can we circumvent things like this? In other words, how can we get true search results? What search engines would you use, or what can we do about this?
Well, one recommendation that I actually have, and I quite often use it, is as often as I can, I use a virtual private network. There's a bunch of software out there that you can download. Some of it's for free, but in my opinion, I would personally pay for one, because the ones that you pay for are a little bit more secure, and it's a little bit, it's hard to explain, and it would take a while for me to explain the technicalities, but another thing that I do use, I use Linux distributions. I don't really, I don't like to use Windows, because Linux is free. Okay, Windows, you have to pay for Windows, and the updates every month. Then they have Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows Vista, so on and so forth, and they're going to be coming out with more and more and more. If people think that there's not backdoors in their computers, I mean, that's basically how somebody breaks into your computer is somebody finds an exploit and does that. For instance, I was on 9gag the other day, and on my dad's Windows PC, I was showing him exactly this topic, and he wasn't too happy about it. And somebody actually hacked into my dad's computer from 9, and that's why I don't like using Windows. Linux is, if you want it to be safe and private and anonymous, use Linux. Another thing that you can do is, another thing really quickly, and then unfortunately I do have to go. I have dinner, but really quickly, 9gag is well renowned over the deep web, as they call it. It's a web of private networks, and 9gag is actually well renowned. The users actually post a lot of gore and illegal child pornography on the internet, on this deep web. So, like I was saying earlier about the luring kids in thing, I mean, you get some 15-year-old, we all know 15-year-olds aren't the smartest ones on the planet, but, you get one of those people in there and you give them a bad link to a bad website that's on the deep web, and they see all this stuff. But on the other hand, they're made to think, this is a cool website, when in reality, 9gag is possibly one of the worst communist. I don't even know how to describe it. If only you could see, if you view the page source, some of the HTML that's in there is actually redirecting you to a military database. It's encrypted on .js. You have to decrypt it, but it's pretty crazy. If you get a chance, I can. If you guys have a Facebook, I'll send you a link. But actually, there's a. Okay, I'll send it to you. But I'm sorry. There's a cop at my door. I have to go. Pleasure meeting you. I'll talk to you. I'll call in some other time.
Have fun with the police. Folks, Linux is an operating system that's an alternative to Windows, and I'm going to tell you something. If you're like me, my goodness, I can barely operate my computer. So Linux is an alternative. If you're those people who know what we're talking about, Linux is a good system to use as opposed to Windows. But the bottom line here is what the caller said initially, I think is important, is the fact that we do this with our stories, with our articles, for example. If we publish an article and we put that article, and Joe, you've done this, you put the article into a search engine, the article title into a search engine, you could see the saturation that article might have, and then you might get 1.2 million results. Okay, then how you're being censored, perhaps is the best word. All of a sudden, instead of 1.2 million results, now you're getting 700,000 results 24 hours later.
They used to have the timeline option on Google where you could, and they erase that, and I think that's led to a lot of the things we see, the inconsistencies, how they get away with that on the website. We're coming up against the break here. We're going to take the rest of your guys' calls. I see there's a bunch of them lined up, and we'll get to as many as possible before Mr. Salus joins us for the third hour.
Right on.
But I got this audio clip to play. Senator to Defense Secretary nominee. Why have the Iranians endorsed you?
This is not going to be pretty.
No.
Given that Iran, the people, and I'm quoting right now from Iran, people of the Middle East, the Muslim region, and the North Africa, people of these regions hate America from the bottom of their heart. It further said Israel is a cancerous tumor in the heart of the Islamic world. They further said Iran's warriors are ready and willing to wipe Israel off the map. The question I'd like to ask you, and you can answer for the record if you'd like, is why do you think that the Iranian Foreign Ministry so strongly supports your nomination to be the Secretary of Defense?
I have a difficult enough time with American politics, Senator. I have no idea, but thank you. And I'll be glad to respond further for the record.
But holy cow! Did you hear his response? That was Senator Chuck Hagel, who they want to, who's in line to be in charge of our Defense Department. Excuse me? What? Yeah. I'm speechless.
Well, this is what we can expect. We see it happen. It's been happening at the DHS and other levels of government, the infiltration from other nations.
I've got the text. I got the text of that response. In case you didn't hear it, folks. Hagel, this is a direct quote. I have a difficult enough time with American politics, Senator. I have no idea, but thank you, and I'll be glad to respond further for the record. Are you serious? This was a question about Iran, and he does not know. And of course, he's going to be, or they're looking for him to be the. This is Obama's choice for Defense Secretary. Excuse me. Look, I don't see this guy. I really, if Hagel gets passed, gets nominated.
Yeah, well, Kerry was nominated.
Well, Kerry had at least the political equity, and at least was somewhat coherent. Mm-hmm. But when you have someone that's going to lead the Defense Department saying, "I have a difficult time with American politics, let alone foreign policy," holy cow! So there we go.
Poorest Americans could be fined under Obamacare. About 500,000 children would be left without insurance, and the poorest Americans could be fined under President Obama's new health care law because of a loophole that the administration and Congress failed to fix. Lawmakers passed the Affordable Health Care Act in 2010 without taking care of a loophole that would make it impossible for low-income families to purchase health care for themselves or their children. Under the health care law, anyone who fails to acquire insurance will be forced to pay a heavy tax penalty, including those who can't afford to pay their employers' insurance plans.
And this is how we are going to be handled.
Yeah, to downplay the severity of the loophole, the administration is calling it a glitch and claiming it was initially unable to address it because of the way that the Congress wrote the law. Now, 2 years after the law was voted on, the affordability loophole is posing a significant problem in the wake of many of the provisions' 2014 implementation. And under the new law, anyone who remains uninsured is acting irresponsibly and will be forced to pay their fair share, whether they need care or not. And if you don't, you will be persecuted, hunted down, have your assets, your bank accounts snatched away by the IRS.
Well, this brings me to just a real quick anecdote here right before the top of the hour. This week I had to contact my accountant because, of course, we closed our business this year. And those of you listening know that we are professional investigators. We have an investigative agency, multi-state licensed, and up until last year, we were working for Fortune 100 and 500 corporations, doing background investigations and surveillance and what have you. And of course, we were given the ultimatum: either keep your political views to yourself, in other words, stop doing radio and just be an investigator for our company, or you find another job. So we decided, obviously, to keep doing what we're doing. But according to my accountant, the paperwork necessary to handle all of the Obama affordable health care, all of those, the forms, the rules, they have no clue. I mean, this is a certified public accountant that's been in business for 30-some years in the town that I'm in. It's a huge entity. It's a huge company. And he said for the first time ever, we're not sure that we can actually file people's and companies' tax returns because of the ambiguity associated with the tax
Originally created and uploaded to YouTube by the Hagman and Hagman channel. To view the full show archives, please visit youtube.com/user/Hagman and Hagman.
865, you're live on the Hagman Report.
Hey, gentlemen. You know what? The Lord works in mysterious ways. I wanted to talk about what happened in Missouri with the farmer, but today I got my first indoctrination into Obamacare because I had to take my child to the doctor. I called my pediatrician, and because we don't have health care, they refused to see us. We don't have insurance. So I had to find a pharmacy or a clinic. And so I went to the little clinic, which is in Kroger's. I don't know if you have Kroger's in your area or not.
Yes. Well, yeah. Go ahead.
And so according to the website, it was $69 for a visit, and then from there it was testing. And so when I get there, well, the charge had changed to $85 for the primary care visit. And then the testing was for a rapid strep test was going to be $105. And I said, excuse me, I'm paying in cash.
Okay.
And I negotiated it down to $105. And that's the beauty of capital, or capitalism, or free market, if you want to put it that way. But what was very interesting to me is they diagnosed my child in 11 minutes. I have the entire thing on tape. I videotaped it. So that means that they're charging the insurance companies at $85 a pop. And they're running them in there every 15 minutes. That's $340 an hour that they're making on top of the testing. And they did absolutely everything in reverse. If you're to bring a child in, the first thing that you want to do is to get vital signs, correct?
That's the general,
right. The heart rate is correct. You want to make sure that the blood pressure is correct. You want to make sure that they have their weight and the height. None of that was done correctly. It was done at the end of because it was something she had to add to the report. But this is what your healthcare is coming to. Now, I don't know if at your Kroger's, if you have the same machines that we do at ours, but if you remember, if you go over to the pharmacy, there's a little kiosk, and that was, where you can check your blood pressure. There's a new machine, and Joyce Riley had taught us about this 3 years ago, that you just go over and you punch in your information, and it will give you a diagnosis. This one does. It can weigh you. It can do your vital signs. It can give you your BMI. And it has a computer screen above your head that posts that information to the rest of the world. I kid you not. I have photographs of it.
Okay, I've never seen that. Wow.
Not only that, it has strips on each side, to the left and to the right, and you put your hands up to it. And it does, I don't know the test, so there's a technical name for it, and I didn't write it down, and I should have. But no, it essentially takes your biometrics. I kid you not. If I can figure out how to download this, I will post it in the chat room. But no, I took photographs of it tonight because when I called them back earlier today, because they forgot to give me a receipt.
Oh, okay. Well.
And when I asked them, I said, "Can I have a bill of sale?" The woman said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You charged me for a procedure. It's called a bill of sale." What do you mean?
Right, or receipt or whatever, right. Yeah. But did you receive paperwork with a diagnosis on it?
No, this is what was really interesting about it. I had to request because I had to stay off for work today because my child was contagious. Unlike most parents, I tend to make sure that I keep my children away from other children so they don't get sick.
Right.
I did get 2 letters of excuses, and when I asked, they wrote me a script for amoxicillin because I formally requested the least obtrusive antibiotic. Because my child has not been on an antibiotic since the 3rd grade. She's in the 8th grade now.
Okay.
So, the introduction needed to be as minimal as possible. So when I asked her, I said, how much is this going to cost me? Well, the first thing she said, well, what pharmacy do you have? I said, well, we don't have a pharmacy. Are we supposed to have a pharmacy? And she looked at me like I was very strange because I didn't have a pharmacy.
Right.
I said, well, we've got the Kroger's pharmacy right next door to where you're at. Fine. It was free.
Okay. Okay. Well, a lot of the antibiotics right now are like $3, or some even are free at various pharmacies, and that's been going on now for a couple of years that I'm aware of. But it's interesting though. You can negotiate down, and I've seen this. You negotiate down a price if you don't have insurance. Then they'll take X amount of dollars for the procedure when they would, in fact, charge the insurance company much more. So, but it's interesting. Did they mention anything specific to the Affordable Health Care Act at all, or was this just a generic type of thing that they just went through the motions, or did they say, well, because of the Affordable Health Care Act, this is what we must do?
Well, what it was is when I asked her, because when I've dealt with my pediatrician, can you put a refill on this just in case, because my son is a little bit older and he might get sick. And no, they would not. She said it is illegal now, due to the Affordable Health Care Act, to put refills on scripts.
Wow. Okay, that's the first I've heard of that.
Same here. I was very concerned. I said, well, what's the difference between you putting a refill on a diabetic's prescription versus something as simplistic as amoxicillin? She said, we are no longer allowed to do that.
Did they say they're no longer allowed to do that for like a diabetic maintenance medication? Is that what you were led to believe, or just amoxicillin?
No, I think it's just for any casual encounter with a allopathic doctor, meaning a medical doctor.
Okay, you know what we're going to do, caller? What I'll do tomorrow is I'm going to contact my healthcare provider, who's a friend of mine, and I'm going to find out if this is something state specific or if this is nationwide, and I'm going to try to find answers for you with respect to this, because this doesn't sound right. I mean, I've never heard of this where no refills on an antibiotic. Or any type of medication other than a narcotic, where they might be a little bit more inclined not to do that. But also we can find out tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's just the most simple form of antibiotic. It's not like it's anything above penicillin.
Well,
and it's just the lowest grade of penicillin.
Well, no. The only thing is just to be clear though, did I hear you correctly saying that the prescription was for one person, like your we'll say your daughter, but in case your son got sick, have a refill for him, or is that what you said, or
just a refill in general, just in case I needed it. Because obviously I was able to self-diagnose. I knew exactly what the child had when I brought her there.
Okay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have been there. If I could have caught it quicker, we wouldn't have been there. God love his little heart. It is strength, charcoal, you name it. The gamut of all naturopathic medicines that I could, but I just could not get through this one. You know, she's the only child I know that can have tears streaming down her eyes and still have a smile on her face when she wakes me up at 4 o'clock and says, "Mommy, my throat hurts."
Oh boy. We'll call her. We're going to do our best to find out what the deal is with this, and we'll report back tomorrow. I've just made a note of this, and we'll see what we can come up with. Wow, this is a new one on me. So we're going to find out what we can and report back. How's that?
All right, that's perfect, and I will do everything within my power to download this photograph of this machine that I took today. That if you see it, you guys need to document it. I mean, it is just creepy weird.
I'll ask the contact that I make tomorrow. I'll ask him about it as well. We have a lot of callers waiting to be on. Look, thank you so very much for that report. God bless you. Interesting, Joe. Interesting how that. I don't know, but we'll come up with an answer. I'll contact my healthcare provider and see what, because he's always good with information.
Yeah, we got a lot of callers on the line. We're going to try to get through most of them within the next 45 minutes before Mr. Salus comes on. We're going to go to Donna right now. Hi, Donna. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Doug. I called my pastor regarding that RFID chat on the 8R4872. I may have to find another church. It seemed that if that was the case, it was for medical reasons, although I don't trust it. And that kind of made me uncomfortable because I didn't get a real answer. It was more like, well, it's for, it's for medical, and, if you were sick, and I don't know, it just didn't make me comfortable. Other than that, I found some information regarding the United Nations, and I'll read it to you today. A statue of Zeus depicted as a man stands in the main lobby at the entrance of the United Nations. He is the god of the UN. No crucifix is allowed. No paintings of Christ are there. Jesus is not welcome at the United Nations. It was a quote from a magazine I got, one of my other magazines. And then you had a caller last night that had somebody, I think it was a son or daughter or a child that watched the Zeitgeist movie and was influenced by it. I just wanted to put it out there that there is a movie. I don't know if it was Chris Pino or Chris Wright did it, but it's called Debunking Zeitgeist. And that might be a place for the caller, if they're listening, to start. It was Debunking Zeitgeist, because most of the information on Zeitgeist came from a book by a woman who supposedly channeled the information. So that should give you some idea that where that book or the Zeitgeist was coming from in terms of the type of information it was trying to implant on people. But Debunking Zeitgeist, that is very good. And then as far as the second coming, I don't know about that whole thing, but I know Paul wrote a letter to the Thessalonians and regarding the whether you want to call it the rapture. He doesn't call it that. It's in 2 Thessalonians 4:13. I say read it and make up your own mind. I don't want to put anybody's opinion in there. It helped me. Do I believe that we're going to go through testing? Yeah. I mean, he kind of tests people through the whole Bible that I've been reading. So I don't think that we're going to, as Christians, go without being tested. And then yesterday you were saying which way, how is this going to come about? I think it's going to come at us from all angles. I think it's going to be, so many different angles because it's already happening from so many angles. I mean, you've got information you can't trust. You really have to search information. You've got even pastors. You've got, military. You've got, people divided. Last night you spoke about families divided. We are so divided now on every level that I think, personally, it's going to come at us from all angles. And I really appreciate the show.
Donna, I agree. It's going to hit us from every angle, every side. And you know something? I think right now we're probably in one of the most treacherous times in terms of information. And people say it in a trite manner. Don't trust us. Look it up for yourself, or do your own research, or take it to God. But we really mean that because I'll tell you, it's never been so important, more important than right now, because we can be tripped up by information, and that's, to our detriment, to our extreme detriment. So you make a good point, Donna.
Yeah, one of the things I do is when I'm searching information, I'll actually type it in as if I'm looking for or positive for it. Like when I was one news channel that's very popular, I won't mention names because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I wanted to know who funded it, so I typed it in as if I liked it to get into their background to see who funded it. And then I got names, and then I went and researched those names. And Brzezinski came up, and because you've mentioned him, so I can mention him, Soros. And I was able to get, because I typed it in like I liked them, then I was able to get who was behind it, and that's how I do it. I kind of go through the back door to get information. I don't know if that helps anybody. The other thing I wanted to mention is it's really fascinating to listen to you, Doug. I don't know how old you are, but we must be around the same age, because when I was growing up, the left, what you call the left, the people that were communist revolutionaries trying to bring down the system were on the news as the bad guy. And now it seems like when I'm listening to people and I'm listening to the news, I mean, that one about crackers yesterday, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A lot of things I can't believe I hear. However, it would seem that now we're the bad guys. If you're conservative, if you believe in pro-life, and yet they talk about human rights, but on the other hand, they're killing babies. I'm sorry, how can you talk about human rights and, stand there with a bunch of kids around you, and then on the other hand, and push the abortion limit to the most critical and disgusting thing I've ever seen. And also, if you believe in the Constitution of the United States, just the idea that we are the bad guys now, and the good guys are the bad guys. So it's very confusing.
Donna, I wanted to throw my pudding cup, at the television when it happened on the Rachel Maddow show. She was lamenting the death of the children at Sandy Hook, and believe me, I do too. However,
I do too.
Yeah, but celebrating in the same frame the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, where 50 million babies have been killed.
Which I think is probably more than that. And
yeah, of course, but wow, it's like in one hand you're crying, rightfully so, over 20 children, but yet the 50+ million don't matter. I don't get it. So, anyway.
And, and like I said, when I called you in before and I found that information, why would an abortion clinic, the biggest one in Florida, incorporate, and I do mean this, they incorporated a coven, a witch's coven. I'm sorry, when I read stuff like that and I check that, and you can find it, it's called The Matrix of Abortion. Anybody who wants to look up on YouTube that thinks I'm crazy, watch it. I think Ray Comfort did it. I think that was the guy. He's very prominent. He's done quite a few. But when people do that, you have to wonder what's really going on here. How evil and perverse is this cloud that's over us? Anyway, I'll shut up now. Thank you. Bye.
Well, thanks, Donna. Have a good one. Interesting.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks for your call, Donna. We're going to go to area code 304. You're live on the Hagman Report.
Hey, Joe and Doug.
304, you're up.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. I wanted to just say a little bit about, kind of about going to war. I'm going to talk to you like I would talk to my family. We're just in such a time like we've never, ever seen. And we don't know what's coming against us. It's like we know what's coming against us. Are you going to fight? I have this one, he's like a preacher that I listen to on the TV, but I really like him. Anyway, he says, well, we're going to be, our goal is to be delivered up before the synagogue of Satan, and that's our goal, to be delivered up, and it is, if that comes to that. And I realize that, kind of like you guys were kind of arguing about this last night.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
We were kind of wrestling with this. Joe and I were, but go ahead.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you had the caller. I'm not remember his name, but he had a really good call last night, and I really liked what he said. And you got to do what the Lord puts in your heart to do. And we just, I don't, well, I'm gonna tell you, if it comes to war like that, and if it comes down to people coming down your street, taking away your family, taking away what you own, taking away you, now aren't you going to fight?
I am.
I am too. And my family, we're the same mind. We're going to fight.
Praise God, pass the ammo.
You're right about that. I mean, that's a duty. That's also a Christian duty. I mean, and then if we are to be brought up before kings and rulers and to have to give our testimony, well, that'll come when that comes. But I do believe we're going to have to fight first.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we are going to be made to fight. I think the fight is going to be brought to us. I don't think we're going to be out, spoiling for a fight, but I do believe we're going to be put in that position. And at that time, and my son is I understand where he's coming from, where Joe's coming from. We all have to make our individual prayerful decisions. But I'll tell you what. I'm not going to die on my knees.
No, I know that. And I'm 51 years old, and I've lived here long enough, and the world that I grew up in no longer exists, and we are, we're walking to the end of the age, and the Lord says He will not leave us or forsake us, and that goes for everyone.
But caller, I here's what I believe too. I believe that God, in His infinite wisdom, put all of us here at this very moment in time, at this place in time, at this moment in history. I think we all have jobs to do. I think you've got a job to do. I don't know what it is, but you might, or maybe you don't. But I think we all have jobs to do. If you're listening to this program, you might be seeking out that job. You might be looking, in search of that. But see, I believe God will lead you to your position, what you need to do if you listen. And
I believe that too.
So
I very much believe that. But like I always say with you guys, I do appreciate you being out there, and it's nice to be able to get on the phone and speak a little bit. But you guys are like, I don't know. You're almost like saying, I almost listen to you almost every night, and I don't turn on the TV. I don't, I turned it off, and it's like, this is entertainment.
Oh boy.
Yeah, well it's good entertainment. It's good learning, though. You got good guests on. They make you think, and you turn on the TV, and it's like your brain goes into neutral. You don't have to think anymore.
That's true. That's
Here,
really
you have to think. You've got to think about what people are saying, and you've got to discern. And I don't agree with everything everybody says. There ain't no doubt about that. But you still, that's part of it. That's all part of it.
Sometimes I don't even agree. Sometimes I argue with myself. We're on a truth fact-finding mission. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find out what the truth is, and we are who we are. We're just a couple of guys, a couple of investigators by profession, pretending to be talk show hosts, trying to find out what the truth is and deliver the truth to a listening audience in a manner that doesn't offend, is not audibly offensive. You know, sometimes we have difficulty stringing sentences together coherently, but that's part of our charm, I like to think, right?
Yes, it is. You're not Alex Jones, and I love Alex Jones, but man, he just
he gets riled up sometimes. Huh?
I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. That's all I know. I mean, with everything that he has going on, I'll tell you.
He's a busy guy.
Hard shoes to fill. Yeah, he is. He is. I believe he's there for a reason. There ain't no doubt about it. He's very intense.
Yes, he is.
And sometimes I just have to turn him off because he starts making me mad. I start getting intense. I want to start kicking things.
I'll tell you,
they're out there. I'll tell you, they're just out there.
Well, we're living in interesting times. You know, at 51 years old, caller, you said you were. You know, we're not that far apart in age, and well, maybe we are. No, we're not that far apart in age. So the world is a much different place than it was when I was a child, and you know, and everyone can relate to that. So we're just trying to get through this together, and we're an extended family, and if we can do this together and learn something at the end of the 3 hours, man, that's, you know, we like to think we've done our job. So appreciate it.
We do. But can I say one more thing? With the purge of the military and the purge of, you know, they're taking away all the good folks out of the military and out of the government system. Now, if this government thinks that they're going to just have their way with the American people, with all the good people out of the military, coming against the citizens now, and what do they think's going to happen? You're only as strong as your weakest link. That's what I told my brother. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
That's true.
They got a lot of weak links.
You know, that's a good point. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't know how it's going to play. I keep arguing with myself. I go back and forth, and Joe and I go back and forth. And, I mean, boy, you ought to hear some of the conversations we have to determine how this will play out. We don't know. And I think anyone who says they know, Joe, I mean, you don't. I don't think anyone can say that they know how this is going to end up.
No,
I mean, play out.
You don't know. You could be hit. You know, you could be hit by a car tomorrow, and it won't matter. But it is interesting.
True.
Yeah, but
anyway,
I love you guys, and you keep doing a good job. And thank you again. Okay.
Well, thank you. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you too. Have a good night.
All right, man.
You too.
It's already at the bottom of the hour. Let's get through some more calls here if we can.
Yeah. We got a lot of people on hold. Let's see.
And don't forget, folks, while he's looking for that Sunday night, 9 o'clock, Greg Evenson, Steve Quayle, Super Bowl Sunday, we'll be doing a show.
Yeah, and Mr. Salus will be joining us in about 28 minutes here. We're going to go to area code 412. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report. Sunday night, 9 o'clock, Greg Evenson, Steve Quayle. I hear the delay in the background, area code 412. And still hear the background.
Yeah, there's about a 13-second delay because
25-second delay.
Oh, 13 delay. Okay. Yeah. Hey, what's up, ahead. Joe? Doug?
How's it going?
Yeah, we're here.
How's it going up there? Hey, you know
Very
what?
Well.
I want to tell you something, Doug. I was seeing more than monkeys on my walls when I was 6. So whatever you had, it worked its way down here to Pittsburgh, because I was out there for a while there, and I don't know. You gave me something on the phone, I guess, huh? Pass it through the lines. But anyway,
are you better now?
I'm up and running now. Yeah, I'm up and running now. I didn't send that package out to you because I was seeing monkeys and all kinds of stuff on my walls here. So
I'm telling you, that's bad stuff.
I'm up and running, and we got this bad weather here today. I didn't make it up to the UPS, but tomorrow I'm going to get up there and get you this thing here I told you I made for you. So I didn't forget about you. I was sick, okay? I have a couple questions for you, okay? About this Benghazi stuff, and you wrote a lot about it, and I really got a lot of information. And I have a question from information that I found out, or what I had heard, was about Clinton. She didn't fall on no whatever, you know. I heard that she was in a plane crash. Did you hear that?
Certainly did, sir. Certainly did. And I asked, and folks listening to this broadcast, there's a rumor, this caller's bringing up about Hillary Clinton being in a small crash or not really a crash, but a hard landing during one of her overseas trips in Iran, where she was not publicly scheduled to be. Now, I asked my intelligence source about this, and he said that and here's the information I've got. He said, look, wait a little bit. He is trying to find some additional information, but there seems to be a gap in time that would be consistent with her being overseas and her being. Remember that she wasn't seen in public for like 13 days, and so there could be some truth to that story.
My source was saying around the first week of whenever we were talking about here. The date slipped my mind here. It was the early part of the month. And that one that one SEAL that they said he committed suicide was killed in that plane crash. So it wasn't a hard landing. And they had some information that I got from my source was there was a pallet full of money on there that ended up missing, and they had some French people come in and fix that plane, and it flew out of there later on that day. So is that corresponding with what you was told, or your information?
You know, I was holding back information about the pallet of money, but yes, since you brought it up, that's exactly right. And this is not source of fall information, folks. This is information that yes, so wherever you're getting your information, sir, I got to tell you, treasure that contact, because that person knows what he's talking about, he or she's talking about.
Well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you, Doug.
It might be a relief, but wow. And we're going to be writing about this as soon as I get some additional confirmation about this. Both Joe and I are going to be writing an article together about this. So, yeah, this could very well be information that.
And I heard that she was in bad shape. She was bleeding really bad. In fact, they thought she was dead. That's how bad she was in the condition that she was in. Now, all this blood clot in the brain and everything like that, this is all bogus stuff here from the sources that, I was told. And I was told there was a big pallet of money, not a little. I'm talking about $400 million or $1 billion that was on that pallet that turned up missing, and French people come in and fixed that airplane and got it out of there. So I don't know.
Yes. And caller, I got to tell you this too. When unfortunately, Navy SEALs and Rangers, Army Rangers, they do commit suicide at times, but they never. It's like an unwritten rule. When that happens, they never announce the death of a SEAL from suicide as suicide.
Well, I was in the service, Doug, and the training that I had, and I flew helicopters in Vietnam, and I knew a lot of SEALs. And SEALs are picked and trained they would never, they'd kill as many people as possible like those guys did during the battle of Benghazi, you know what I mean? Navy SEALs just don't commit suicide. That's just the least thing that they'd kill everybody else before they went, you know?
Well, it does happen, though, caller. But see, the unwritten rule is, if that does happen to one of the brothers, they don't come out and say it's from suicide. It's always a training accident or something other than that. You know, but you're right. It's very rare. It does happen, but it's rare. So there are a lot of strange things with this.
The Navy SEALs that I know are really upset because a lot of them, it's becoming a really dangerous thing to be a Navy SEAL, you know, like when they went and they killed bin Laden after he took him out of the freezer, you know, and that helicopter got blown up with all those Navy SEALs and everything. So the Navy SEALs, they just don't do things like, and they are, you know, chomping at the bit here. So that's why they're starting this stuff here. And, you know, I have to make another comment, Doug, about the one caller said, well, when they come down, walking down the street here, it's time to fight. Why don't we get together and stop this before the fighting starts here? That's what we got to concentrate on doing, because when they come walking down the street here, it's a little bit too late. You know what I'm saying, boss? I mean, it's too late when they come down the street here. I think we got to get some veterans like myself and a bunch of other disabled veterans from the Vietnam War. I mean, you can't get anybody from the Second World War because they're just about all gone, you know. I mean, my dad's gone, and he was 86. And, you know, I think we get a bunch of veterans together, and I know a lot of people that are on the wall in you know, down in Washington, D.C. I think we got to get 50, 60,000 people that know somebody that's on that wall, multiply that by getting somebody else that served in Vietnam, and go down to Washington, D.C. and stop this, because there's only 535 of those stooges down there running this country. We just got to go out there and stand in front of that and just say enough is enough here, because you're not going to do this black bagging Vietnam veterans and black bagging people. You know, I mean, we got to stand up now, because it's getting too late, Doug. It's too late now, I think, you know. And you turn around and you read these articles in the paper that you see that they just bought, Homeland Security just bought, what, 700,000 or 700 high-performance weapons or defensive weapons, and they've been buying all this ammo left. Well, who do you think that's for? And I remember years ago, if you saw black helicopters, they told you had a tinfoil hat. Now, what's going on here? They're flying up and down the Florida and in Texas and everything. Well, you know, they're training. They just they're bringing in all these Russian troops here to train in Texas. I mean, we need this here. Russia don't have enough place over there to train. They want to train here. What do you think they're training for? People, please, wake up. Wake up, people. Get your rear end off the couch. We got to do something here, Doug, because I'm telling you what, it's going to hit the fan. It's going to be too late, and I hope it ain't too late. You know, I'm praying God, you know, because when God brings his hand on, it's going to be, maybe that's what it's going to be.
Well, look, I think you're right. I totally agree with you that we need to get together. You know, we are working with, we're trying to get some other talk show hosts to do some things together to the extent where we can actually
get a hold of Pete Santelli. He's out in California. Okay.
Yep.
He's
we're
getting
reaching out to everybody.
Together. He's getting sheriffs together for this Second Amendment thing, and he has a good show. He's really thrown it all in, you know, with basically what you're doing, but he's a little bit stronger, you know. And
he's a good guy, and he's got a great program. But we're reaching out to people like him and people like him to get together, at least from a talk circuit, to get some unity, and then from there to unify, you know, the rank and file, like you and I, and you know that. So yes, we're but I believe you're right. We've got to do something now before before we lose that opportunity.
But his show comes on at 2 o'clock on the East Coast time. Okay, so I mean, he has a good, strong voice here about veterans and everything because he's a Marine, and you know he's like me. I'm and like you, Doug. I'm not going to die on my knees, you know. And I already fought in one war and tried to kill communism when I was in Nam. And that's what we should have did over there, and I think we did it. But the government just pulled out on us, and it's here now. It's here in our country, and we have to kill it here because things are going to start happening, and you know it. You can feel it. It's been happening real quick here, you know, and things are moving a little bit too quick now, and I just, you know.
Well, my friend, look, you just you take care of yourself. Get stronger. I know you're feeling better now, but just make sure you don't relapse into that flu. I want to say God bless you, my friend, and we are going to be. Let's talk again.
Okay, yeah, and you get something from me from UPS in the next couple of days because I promise you, if I have to go up there in my wheelchair, I'm going to send you that thing out. I want to see it on your desk.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
God bless you, Joe. Right. You take care of your dad, and God bless both of you, and God bless your show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and God bless you, too. You stay safe. Hope you get better.
What a great guy. What a great guy. I love the guy. Love him.
All right, we're going to hit another phone call here.
Thank you for being patient, folks. What we try to do is we try to give. I mean, this is your show as well. I mean,
this is a Skype call. I'm going to just say Fred at the beginning of the name. Fred, you're live on the Hagler. Wow.
Whoa.
Fred, if you're still there, you are live. We still
Hello?
Okay. I can tell you what. Your speakers are actually.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. I'm sorry, Fred. If you want to call back tomorrow, we don't have a guest scheduled. We got open phones.
And your speaker, you actually had your speakers on, and it was reverberating through the computer, through the system, so it was like we could not have carried on a conversation. I apologize for that.
All right, we're going to go to area code 305. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hi. Hi, guys.
Hello
there. You there? Hi.
We're here.
Well, I just wanted to say something. You know, when Donna called, she was mentioning about how things are in reverse. You know, the good guys or the bad guys, or the whole thing is just turned topsy-turvy. And she mentioned about the abortion clinic with witchcraft, with a coven.
Yes.
And I started to think about that, and then I was listening to Russ Disda earlier, and he was talking about a movie he saw that was made about a dozen years ago, about 12, 13, 14 years ago, and I think he said the name of it was The 18th Angel. And he said that the makers of the movie, you know, he says, and by all means, this is not a Christian movie. It's a Luciferian movie. And he said that, but it was very realistic as to what he thinks is kind of going on. And this 18th angel was being created by these scientists. And the body was being, you know, engineered, being created, and that the scientists were looking to make the perfect face for Lucifer to enter into this body, and that they were taking the skin they were killing children and taking the skin to make this perfect face. And I started to think about that along with these abortion clinics with the witchcraft, and how this death cult of people are promoting abortion, and the fetuses, the dead children, are being used for for science, and taken to science and used for the DNA is being used for creating taste things for Pepsi, and they're using it for the dead children. They're using it for skin creams. And then I started to think about how I had read that they're killing people in foreign countries and melting them down for the fat in human bodies and taking it to clinics in Europe and making this expensive face creams for people, and how this whole creepy cult of Luciferian people are also involved in their beauty and all off having these cosmetic surgeries and fancy schmancy face creams, and it's all being used with human DNA, okay? It's like a death cult. It is a death cult.
Well, caller, you hit on a lot of issues, and we don't really have time to get into those today.
I know.
But you are
it's
right,
all tied together. It's a Luciferian death cult, and they're using... Yeah. That's it. So
the placentas are being used. You're right, caller. Thank you very much. The placentas are being used for all sorts of purposes. That it's an incredible issue. It's an incredible story. But folks, we're blessed right now to have with us, fresh off of one of his many interviews, author Bill Salus. Now, Bill Salus is the founder of Prophecy Depot Ministries. Additionally, he's an author, he's a researcher, he's a conference speaker, he's the host of a radio program heard in Southern California called the Prophecy Update. Now,
his computer just went down for a minute.
Okay.
We're just waiting for him to reconnect.
All right.
He's coming back.
His first book, ISRALESTINE, the Ancient Blueprints for the Future Middle East, introduced Psalm 83 as an imminent prophecy, which prompted many of today's top Bible prophecy experts to teach about the coming Psalm 83 war, of which we are one to talk about the Psalm 83 war. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to forego the to the AM stations broadcasting us, simulcasting us. We're going to forego the top of the hour break, play PSA or whatever at the time.
Yeah. Do the Gremlin Firearms.
Okay, we can do that right now while we're waiting for Bill.
We'll play some elevator music. Do the Gremlin Firearms, and we'll.
This is probably one of my favorite webs, or one of my favorite people, Carl and Mr. and Mrs. Granlund. I got to tell you, Granlund Firearms, folks, if you haven't been to their website, go to their website. It's GranlundFirearms.com. That's Granlund, GRANLUND, firearms.com. Alternatively, you can go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, our home base. Click on the link to their website and check out what they've got on sale. Their gun stock list, their survival gear, their anything you need if you're up in British Columbia. And even if you're not, you can order via the website. They're located in Campbell River, British Columbia, which is the salmon capital of the world, by the way. I did not know that until I was told by the Granlunds. Now they've got a bunch of wonderful photographs on their website, but more importantly, the inventory that they've got. Check it out. I'm telling you, the gun stock list that they have, folks, you cannot get a better deal in the United States anywhere. And if you're in Canada, you're lucky enough to be able to get this without having to cross international lines. But for example, a Mossberg 190 16 gauge shotgun for $99, a Mossberg 500 Persuader for $400. I think the last Mossberg 500 Persuader I saw here in the States was about $200 more than that. So GranlundFirearms.com. Go to their website, have a look around, and you know what? Before you leave, sign their guest book. Tell them Doug and Joe Hagen sent you.
All right, there we go. We're still waiting for Mr. Salus to connect. Looks like his Skype is down.
Oh no.
Let me check.
But you know, Bill Salus, and folks, if you haven't been to the ProphecyDepot.com, Prophecy Depot Ministries, it's well worth the time. He has laid out some interesting, very, very interesting news. I mean, he's compiled a lot of news about the coming war in the Middle East. His books are fabulous. prophecydepot.net is his website, prophecydepot.net. And his new book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, an ancient prophecy written over 3,000 years ago reveals that the Arab states and terrorist populations that presently share common borders with Israel will soon get together in order to wipe Israel off the map. And these enemies of Israel are depicted in his book. And their mandate is clear, according to Mr. Salus. They have said, come and let us cut off from being come and let us cut them off from being a nation, meaning Israel, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. That's Psalm 83:4, which, of course, is where Psalm 83 war came from, or where the prophecy originated. Visit prophecydepot.net for his latest articles. Egypt in the End Times teaching video is especially a good video to watch if you want to figure out, or if you want to see how Egypt figures into the end times. The Palestinian Confederacy, that's detailed in his book, ISRALESTINE, The Ancient Blueprints for the Future Middle East. That was written back in 2008. And to see where we are today in 2013 versus where Bill Salus had written about it in 2008, it's an amazing thing to watch. It's kind of scary, actually. It's almost I don't know. It's frightening. Now, he also wrote a kind of a fiction book, Revelation Road, and I like that book too. If you're into fiction, whatever, it's a unique book designed for those who like both fiction and nonfiction, and it's about George Thompson believes his grandson Tyler is living in the final generation, and it goes through the entire Revelation series, if you will, and it's an interesting book, Revelation Road. But I'll tell you what, my favorite is ISRALESTINE, and of course the Psalm 83.
Hagman and Hagman Report, the third and final hour of the show. We are have a very special guest, Mr. Bill Salus, author, talk show host, has a website you can find at Prophecy Depot Ministries, prophecydepot.com.
No, prophecydepot.net.
Oh, sorry.
It's Prophecy Depot Ministries, and we're Bill, you didn't hear it, but we gave you a glowing introduction prior to just about 5 minutes ago. I want to welcome you to the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hey, well, it's great to be back, and I'm glad to hear you're feeling better there.
I'm back, and it's due to prayers. I'm convinced prayers work wonders. But how you been, sir?
I've been busy. Got a new book out, and it's kept me pretty busy.
Well, look. Now, is it out right now, or are we pre-ordering the book?
It exists right now. It came out about a week and a half ago, and you can get it at my website. Like you announced, was prophecydepot.net, but it is also prophecydepot.com, so you're both right. But
wow.
You can get it on Amazon. It's a bestseller on Amazon right now. It really came out hitting hard, and it's been featured on Sid Roth's TV show, Prophecy in the News, and it's going to be featured on Jewish Voice coming up real soon, and Eric Stackleback on Terror. So it's pretty neat because it's really dealing with all that research I did on Psalm 83 and how it applies to what's going on since the Arab Spring and what's going on in the Middle East, even as we speak right now.
Well, I'm excited to read it because I know ISRALESTINE, what a terrific book. You set up you really laid out the Arab Confederacy. You were right on the money with that. And this book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, by the way, it's also on DVDs. You also have it on 3 DVDs, which is fabulous for those who want to order that. But Bill, where are we at today? I mean, even every day we wake up and we hear new news about what's going on in Israel, and
especially today and the last week, it's just ramped up so much.
So where are we at right now, Mr. Salus, with respect to God's timepiece being Israel? What's going on? What are you looking at as on your radar right now?
Well, just a brief overview to get to where we are right now. We are 6 decades deep into the end times, meaning it's almost 65 years this May since Israel became a nation in 1948. And that did signal that the world hourglass made its final spin. And 6 decades later, the international community cannot figure out how to bring peace in the Middle East. And the Arab Spring, of course, came along in 2011. And I think really that was a tipping point to let us know that it was time really for the wars that are spoken about in the Bible, namely Psalm 83, followed by Ezekiel 38, just to happen. And inside of those wars, there are peripheral prophecies too, like Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus, and Isaiah 19, the collapse of Egypt, and Jeremiah 49, dealing with another prophecy on Iran that most people aren't teaching about. So I think where we're at right now is that the diplomacy has failed. There's no shot for peace really at this point. The Arab Spring was the tipping point to let us know that the wars are about to commence. And I think what you're seeing right now is a chaotic Middle East. You've got chemical weapons going about in Syria. Israel came out not too long ago and said if those chemical weapons were to cross over into Lebanon, into Hezbollah's hands, that would be a red line. And what we just find out, they struck at the border of Lebanon and Syria just yesterday because they obviously anticipated the chemical weapons were going over there. They hit the Jumeirah location there, which is a heavy weapons depot where they suspect there are indeed chemical weapons. Then you got Egypt to the south with the Muslim Brotherhood. It's almost like you could just read Isaiah 19 and as if Isaiah was standing in the streets of Tahrir Square saying Egyptian is going to come against Egyptian and brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor and city against city and then kingdom against kingdom. These things are all just happening right before our eyes right now. Just to name a few, Jordan's meeting with the chief Politburo, Mashal of Hamas, Hamas is an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he's meeting with him. Why is he meeting with him? Because he's concerned what's happening in the Middle East. He's concerned the Muslim Brotherhood's about to make a move on Jordan. And so he is trying to get ahead of the ball there and meeting with Mashal to try to really pacify the Muslim Brotherhood. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I could go, as you know, talk forever on this stuff. But right now, I would really encourage everybody to pick up their Bible and read Psalm 83 because I think this is becoming a very imminent prophecy.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Salus, and I have one question pertaining to the chemical weapons that are so much talked about in the mainstream news. There's been reports that the U.S. sanctioned a false flag attack using chemical weapons on Syrian people to justify going in there full force. Have you heard about that or investigated that at all?
No, honestly, I haven't heard of that. You're telling me that the U.S. Is saying that the chemical weapons are being used against the Free Syrian Army rebels, and the U.S. is saying that that's a bona fide report, and are you saying that they have some kind of implication in that?
Okay, according to a few news sources,
out of Britain, actually, out of the UK.
Yeah. U.S. plan to launch chemical weapons attack on Syria and blame it on Assad in order to launch a preemptive or a bigger strike.
Yeah, Bill, this was information gleaned from supposedly hacked emails.
And now the article's gone off the UK.
Right, but it can be found in other locations. What they're saying was the comparable to the Defense Department over the UK. Their email system was hacked, and there was one report, one email exchange, where it said it's okay, go ahead and for the Ansar al-Sharia backed, or I'm sorry, not Ansar al-Sharia, but for the Free Syrian Army to pull a false flag operation using the chemical weapons that came out through the Bekaa Valley. To make it look like Assad was using chemical weapons on his own people. That's the long and short of it.
Well, I'm not really familiar with that. That's fairly conspiratory, and I tend to sort of be leery of those types of reports. You're certainly not going to get any of that kind of information on your mainstream media, but I don't think it really matters because it's out of control in the Middle East anyways, whether there's an attempt, like you're saying there, to fabricate a scenario to start, pointing international condemnation on Assad or not. I mean,
sure.
The Pandora's box is now opened. When Israel struck, they pretty much realized that they could open Pandora's box. Tehran has come out and said, it said just a few days ago before the strike that Syria is a strong ally and an attack on Syria is really an attack on Iran. Well, they've got those proxies with Syria and Hezbollah and now Hamas, and they're moving in on Iraq, and they're going to keep trying to spread their hegemony throughout the region. But, what people need to realize is in December of 2009, there was a war pact signed between Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, and Hamas that should anyone come under attack, that the others would join in the infighting. And so, Israel is now at high risk that they're going to come under an attack. Now, this could be rumors of war. This could be idle threats from Iran, but they're going to have to do something because Hezbollah and Syria are going to start to call upon Iran to honor their obligations to them via those war pacts. But I really do believe at any given morning we're going to wake up and see a barrage of missiles flying, not just hearing about some missiles coming back out of Hamas into Israel, which, by the way, remember at November and December of last year, they were shooting them as far as up into Tel Aviv, which, Israel at this point in time, there's a run on gas masks going on in the country. They're really concerned that this thing is going to blow wide open, and I think they are justified in that thinking.
Wow. Well, no, I remember back when you wrote ISRALESTINE, you had described the Psalm 83 Confederates, basically modern-day equivalent thereof. And so what you're saying, if I understand this correctly, we're seeing this confederation of Arab nations and groups now forming, and just as you outlined in your book, ISRALESTINE, and we're now at the precipice of really just a spark, if you will, in this tinderbox known as the Middle East. That's kind of where we're at. I take it from what you're saying here.
No, I really do believe so, you guys. Let's take it back to the Arab Spring, and presuming that is the turning point here. The liberal pundits, of course, when it was happening, said it was just the Middle East youth bulge, Arab youth bulge, driven by the social networks of YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, looking outside the confines of 7th century Islam and state-censored media, and getting a grand glimpse at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But now we realize that's not what's really been happening. 2 years later, about 60,000 dead Syrians and hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees flooding into Turkey and Jordan, all kinds of dead Egyptians now as the protests are revived again. What I remind people, and I think I've mentioned this to you on your show when I was on last time, that in Daniel 2:21, Daniel says it's the Lord who changes times and seasons, who removes and raises up kings, and gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those with understanding. And the point that's important here is that we have seen a season of change in the Middle East, a drastic and dramatic season of change. We have seen kings, or in our case, prime ministers and presidents, removed and or assassinated in the Arab Spring at an amazing pace. But those guys that are gone, Gaddafi and Mubarak and Badin Ali of Tunisia and Saleh of Yemen, those were not people that were going to threaten Israel with war, per se. But the guys that are left, and the guys that are being raised up like Mohammed Morsi, and the guys left like Ahmadinejad and Nasrallah, Hezbollah, and Assad and whatnot, they are willing to go to war with Israel. Hamas guys are still intact. And I do believe that that's a sign to us that the people that will lead their populations in a confederacy in Psalm 83 in a war against Israel, they are at the helm right now as a result of the Arab Spring. And conversely, Israel has strong leadership to defend the country in Benjamin Netanyahu, He's at the helm. All the kings are in place, guys, for this war to happen. The only thing that's sort of standing in the way of it would be a fragile peace treaty between Egypt and Israel and a fragile peace treaty between Israel and Jordan. You might think, well, Syria, okay, and I probably should give the little map of who all these people are. So let me do that first,
okay.
And then let me make a comment on Syria as well. But the Psalm 83 countries, it's an ancient 3,000-year-old prophecy for your listeners that aren't familiar with it, written by Asaph at a time when Israel was experiencing unprecedented blessings from the Abrahamic covenant. They were in their land. They were prospering in their land. They were winning wars. They were grabbing more territory during King David and King Solomon's time. King David was their chosen king. They were talking about building their temple. And then Asaph comes along and gets this prophecy, which is nothing short of a genocidal attempt of the chosen people and a total confiscation of the promised land. And that prophecy has not found fulfillment yet. Here we are 3,000 years later, and we're watching it set up on our TV sets here on the news. And who he was talking about was a confederacy that would come together, form crafty counsel against the Jewish people, and their goal is to cut the nation off that the name of Israel is remembered no more. And we're told why in verse 12 of Psalm 83, because they want to take the pastures of God for themselves as a possession. And what they want to do is have another Arab state in the Middle East, and they want to wave the flag of Palestine over it, and they don't want to share the flagpole with Israel. So the goal is they want to go ahead and wipe Israel off the map, push them into the sea, and make them non-existent, that the name of Israel would be remembered no more. Now, you're seeing in Egypt, which is where we probably would spend quite a bit of time in this conversation talking about what's going on there. But in Syria, the other thing concerns, some people would say, well, Syria's in Psalm 83. Oh, and I haven't given you the list yet. So here's who they are. You got Lebanon. This is part of the Confederacy, including Hezbollah. You got Syria. You got Iraq. You got Jordan. You got Saudi Arabia. You got Egypt. You got the Hamas in Philistia, ancient Philistia, and you got the Palestinian refugees throughout the West Bank. And in the Psalm, they're called the tents of Edom, connotating that they're tents of, or they're refugee conditions. And that's who they are. And Egypt is definitely threatening Israel now. They're going to, and Syria is got chemical weapons moving around, trying to get them into Hezbollah's hands. So it's really at this point, Israel has never been under more existential threat in all of its history by the Psalm 83 people.
And isn't it fascinating that we are sending military weapons, fighter jets, tanks to the Muslim Brotherhood with our tax dollars in Egypt at a time when the hostility between Israel and Egypt hasn't been this high in decades?
Well, it's absolutely absurd. Egypt is the 16th ranked world army. Israel happens to be ranked 10, and Iran happens to be ranked 12. But the closest army ranked in the Arab world ranked to Egypt is Saudi Arabia, and they're ranked 26. And Egypt is really who you got to be watching for right now, because the adage is, as goes Egypt, so goes the whole Middle East. And so Egypt right now, Mohammed Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood, have been waiting for 5 decades to have their opportunity to reign sovereign and implement Sharia law into Egypt and over throughout the Middle East and establish their Islamic caliphate. And Mohammed Morsi, when he was running for president, it was real clear in his campaign that you don't get this on the news, but you can find it on YouTube with his clerics that were promoting his presidential campaign, that he wanted to form a United Arab States. They wanted the Muslim Brotherhood to be in charge of it. They wanted to liberate the Gaza, which is where the Hamas are. And they wanted the capital of the United Arab States to not be Cairo, which is where the Arab League was founded in 1945, but they wanted it to be in Jerusalem. They want it to be in Jerusalem. And as you know, the Palestinians just got approved with the United Nations to have non-member observer state status in November of 2012. Mm-hmm. And what do they want? They want their capital to be Jerusalem. So what you're going to see is a march toward Jerusalem. And once Morsi can get all these weapons he's getting from America, the F-16s and the tanks, and once he gets all the money he's trying to procure out there, and let me just run that by you guys real quick. He's trying to get $20 billion from Qatar. He's trying to get $1.5 billion from us. He's trying to get $3.75 billion from Saudi Arabia. He's trying to get $2 billion from Turkey. He's trying to get a loan from the International Monetary Fund of $4.8 billion, and if that comes through, he's going to get 5 billion euros, approximately $6.5 billion from Europe. You're talking about $38 billion he's trying to get, which he won't be able to get if there's violence in the streets of Tahrir Square. And guess what, guys? There's violence in the streets of Tahrir Square. So he's got a real problem going on right now. Now, Egypt has been downgraded by Standard & Poor's at the end of 2012 from a B to a B- rating on their credit reserves, which means now they're even par with Greece. They are headed for a rapid economic decline. And Mohammed Morsi, you just watch, he's going to, once he can get some money in and get those weapons over whatever, he's obligated to his constituency, and he will start to try to liberate the Hamas, and he will try to start to unite the Arabs and move in on Jerusalem and on Israel. Mohammed Morsi, you might have heard this or reported on this, who's been legitimized by the Obama administration as the democratically elected president. Hillary Clinton called on Mohammed Morsi to broker that ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. That basically Mohammed Morsi in 2010 on Arab television was calling the Zionists bloodsuckers and descendants from apes and pigs. He's anti-Semitic. I mean, you may as well have Mahmoud Ahmadinejad running Egypt right now. But he's a consummate politician because he wants to get all that money. But his true colors have not surfaced yet. I mean, they have. We've been watching his bold moves since he's become a president, those of us are paying attention. But you wait and see. They are going to move, and they're going to move quick, and they're going to move against Israel. And I've got prophecies that I could start talking about in that vein. But we've got a whole hour, so we'll go ahead and answer some general questions and maybe get into some of the prophecies.
Well, Bill, I think it's important for people to really understand that you really were the architect of the man behind the meaning of Psalm 83. I think you were the first person to connect the Psalm 83 prophecy to what's going on today. Is that a fair assessment? Fair statement?
Yeah, there were a few people who had written summarily about it, like Dr. Ron Fruchtenbaum had written a few pages in his book Footsteps of the Messiah. David Dolan had written a chapter in his book Israel in Crisis. And there was a couple other people that had maybe briefly written about it, but nothing extensive. Any kind of commentary on Psalm 83 up until ISRALESTINE came out in the summer of 2008 was really not prophetic in its nature. It was just looked upon as a psalm, a prayer of lament. They called it an imprecatory prayer. And that's why the research was exhaustive, because I had to really comb through all the Old Testament and some of the New Testament to find prophecies that were related to Psalm 83, because they just weren't available in your commentaries and on your Google searches and things like that. And so I have found, and I point out in the new book, that the major and minor prophets spoke quite a bit about Psalm 83. I found about 150 verses that give us details about Psalm 83. And to put that into context, the Ezekiel 38 and 39 prophecy, which really has been much more taught, written about, for lack of a better word, more popularized as far as the prophecy, that's only 52 passages, and they are very, very descriptive. Psalm 83, I believe, has about 3 times as many verses written about it, and yet it was sort of, the scholars had missed it. That's why the book is called Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, and the subtitle is How Israel Becomes the Next Mideast Superpower. The scholars had missed it, and it's and the other aspect of it being a missing prophecy is that when you understand it, it's like a missing puzzle piece that when you put it into the prophetic scheme of things, everything else falls into place. Once you understand that Israel has to deal with its Arab neighbors that have hated them from time immemorial, the populations I listed earlier, Israel has to deal with them. They have those around Israel that surround them. They want to devour them. There's all kinds of prophecies written about them. They're going to want to lay siege on Jerusalem. Zechariah 12 tells us that just won't work. It'll be a cup of trembling. And verse 2, to all the surrounding peoples, meaning the Psalm 83 peoples, it says when they come to lay siege on Jerusalem in Zechariah 12, verses 5 and 6, that the governors of Judah, the Israeli Defense Forces in my teaching, they will form together and they will stop the Psalm 83 countries trying to come and lay siege on Jerusalem. And it says that they will be like a fiery torch, and the surrounding peoples will be devoured like sheaves. So, we're headed for a big, big showdown over Jerusalem. The Palestinians want it for their eternal capital, and it's just not going to happen, guys. But what is going to happen is we're going to wake up in the morning, one of these mornings, and it's going to be a big time over there with missiles all over the place.
Well, Bill, if I can just kind of back up just for a second here. And folks, we're talking with Bill Salus, Prophecy Depot, prophecydepot.net, prophecydepot.com, the author of Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed. Our very special guest, again, Mr. Bill Salus, author of Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed. You can get that via prophecydepot.net, prophecydepot.com, both on DVD and the book, as well as Amazon. But, Bill, if I can back up just for a second here, one thing that really caught my attention, and I'm not sure how many of our listeners know this, the summer of 2006, very prophetic year, the Psalm 83, verse 7, inhabitants of Tyre, his modern-day equivalent could be basically Hezbollah. They were engaged in a regional war with Israel. What happened in 2006 that you could tell our listeners about that was so prophetic?
Yeah, it was. You started to touch on it. The Hezbollah got engaged in a conflict with Israel, and it was a major conflict. I mean, it was a regional skirmish, but it was a big one, much more than the intifadas that had preceded it. And it was a 34-day conflict, and Hezbollah lobbed 4,000 missiles into northern Tel Aviv, and many Israelis were on lockdown into bomb shelters for the better part of a month in northern Israel. And then 2 weeks in to this conflict, in Ireland, a construction worker was doing a project in Irish bog soil. Now that's very muddy bog soil. And so what happened was he was there with his backhoe and his crew, and they were excavating, and basically what would be equivalent to like swampland. And they found a lot of rich antiquities that, they were kind of spread out all over the place, and so he put a halt on his project. This was on July 26th of 2006. And they started kind of digging through here, and they realized, oh, my goodness, we found a very important find here. And it was a bunch of psalms that were really ruined, and they've got them into the museum over there in Ireland, and they're trying to salvage what they can. But one psalm, only one psalm, was found intact, and not only intact, but opened in place, and not only opened in place, but absolutely unblemished. And this was amazing because this was no archaeological dig. It was, with toothbrushes. It was a full-on, construction project in the worst of conditions. And it was Psalm 83, guys. It was Psalm 83. There's 150 psalms. There's 1,189 chapters in the Bible, and there's 31,173 verses. And Doug, you quoted Psalm 83:7, which is the only place you're going to find any resemblance of Hezbollah, known as the inhabitants of Tyre there, and Israel. Remember I said that they want to wipe Israel off the map in Psalm 83, pinned up in a confrontation. Now, you will find Tyre and Israel mentioned in other places of the Bible, like King Hiram of Tyre. He wanted to help King Solomon with the temple and things like that. But you'll never find them going toe-to-toe in a conflict. So what's amazing is that when this find happened, this discovery, this antiquity discovery, they heralded it at the time. The BBC News came out and called it the Irish Dead Sea Scroll discovery. The odds of them finding that, not ruined, Psalm 83 open in place, when Psalm 83 kind of a preview of what that war would be like with Hezbollah and Israel was going on, are astronomical. I mean, I'm not a statistician, but I mean, I would have to say it's probably 1 in a trillion. To the umpteenth power that they found that.
And this was at the very same time that you were writing the book ISRALESTINE. And am I correct in that?
Well, that's the other. Let's throw that into the equation too. So 2 things. One is they find this psalm buried in the bog, which, by the way, they believe it was buried about 1,200 years, and it was written in Latin. So the odds of that happening are unbelievable. At the timing of the Hezbollah-Israel war, making that connection, And that same period of time, I was writing ISRALESTINE, which is the central theme is Psalm 83. Trying to get that book out there, trying to teach on Psalm 83 because there just was not very much materials written about that. So, throw that into the equation. What are the odds of that happening all in that particular summer of 2006? Unbelievable.
Yeah, the timing, I mean, very providential. And when you consider what Mr. Salus was writing about at the time and this find, and I mean, if that's not enough to motivate anyone to grab a hold of the book ISRALESTINE as well as the current book Psalm 83, I don't know what is, because what Mr. Salus has written is really tomorrow's headlines. And now with that,
I got a good question here. A listener asked Mr. Salus what you believe America will be doing during these times of war and tribulation in the Middle East. Will we be a part of it? Will we be observers, or will we be full-blown engaged?
Okay, well, let me answer that question. Before I do, I want to say one last thing of interest to you guys. The 7-year anniversary of that Hezbollah war and that discovery of the bog soil find of Psalm 83 is this coming July. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That doesn't mean Psalm 83 will happen, but 7-year anniversary in the Bible is usually pretty significant. Now, whether or not that has anything to do with anything, I'm just throwing that out there because I know you guys are kind of interested in those kind of bizarre, quirky things as well. But
we are.
Okay, getting into America. Well, I actually, first of all, let me tell you this about the book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy, revealed how Israel becomes the next Middle superpower. It is a sequel to ISRALESTINE. Matter of fact, it is a book I would recommend over ISRALESTINE because it includes about 80 to 90% of ISRALESTINE in it, but an additional 10 to 12 new chapters and appendixes. So it really is the book to get. Now, I still have some ISRALESTINE left if the people want to get the 2 chapters I didn't include, but we're really pushing the Psalm 83 book. Now, inside of the Psalm 83 book, I have 2 chapters dealing with America. One of them is, what is the future for America in Bible prophecy? Is it in the Bible? And I can talk on that subject here briefly with you. The second chapter is America's role in Psalm 83. And so what is America's role? So the point is, in Psalm 83, it's very difficult to find any other entity assisting Israel in this war. It's Israel pretty much by itself with the Israeli Defense Forces, which exists in fulfillment of Bible prophecy, and I point that out in the book as well, going against their Arab enemies. And we're told in Ezekiel 37:10, Israel actually becomes an exceedingly great army. I said earlier they're ranked number 10 among world armies right now. And the moment they win this war, perhaps launch a nuclear weapon against Damascus, or whatever it may be, you can bet they'll jump up from number 10 to who knows, what number, the top 5. And I'll say on a side note that America was ranked number 16 among world armies until they launched the nuclear weapons in Japan, and overnight they were ranked number 1. Funny how that works.
Yes.
But so America does have an important role, even though this really is Israel going toe-to-toe with their Arab enemies. There's a couple things on America that are very significant. And I want to start by saying the future for America, dealing with that chapter in the book. It's very difficult to find America in the Bible. And in the book, I point out the 6 arguments that are prominent where America could be. And I personally think we're not found in in 5 of those 6 arguments. Are we the mystery Babylon? Are we the Babylon of Revelation 18, namely verses 9 through 11? Are we the unnamed nation in Isaiah 18? Are we implicated in Bible prophecy because of the 10 lost tribes of Israel? Are we the great eagle of Revelation 12? I mean, so I get into all of these arguments, and then I dispel them and why I don't believe we're in any of those. But then I say why we probably are in Ezekiel 38 and 39, listed as the young lions of the merchants of Tarshish, and I explain why I believe that. And so, but the point is that if we are in the Bible, even those young lions there, they're not behaving like a superpower country like we have been. The scholars who study this stuff, and myself included, believe something happens to America. That's why we're not a prominent figure in the Bible. I mean, Russia's listed over 5 times in the Bible. Egypt is listed 565 times in the Bible. Gaza is listed like 40-plus times in the Bible. Where is America? Why is it so hard to find the greatest superpower that ever lived? What happens to us? If we are in the Bible, we are not the same kind of America that we have become accustomed to as a superpower status. It's the best I can suggest you, and I go to great lengths to show this scripturally in the Bible. So, but what is America's role as we're slipping from our superpower status? What is America's role in Psalm 83, which now, 10 minutes after you asked me that question, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and answer it now. you want me to keep going?
Keep going, my friend.
Okay. All right. God established America. It's God who establishes nations, defines their boundaries and their purposes, and judges nations, too, when they go apostate. There's all scriptural pretext for what I'm about to say. Now, we didn't become a superpower nation because of our granddaddy's great looks. We became a superpower because God had specific purposes for this country. One was we were to be a safe haven for the Jewish people. 2 was we were to be involved in the rebirthing of the nation Israel in 1948. 3, we were to be a beacon of Christianity to the nations of the world. Those would be, when you look back on our history, the 3 primary reasons we could assess that God established this nation and burgeoned us into the superpower country that we became. Even Christopher Columbus came over here when the Jewish people in Spain in 1492 were being persecuted by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. And, of course, he wasn't headed for America, but he stumbled upon America in his travels. And then in the 1600s, we had Solomon Franco was the first Jew to ever come over here in America. And from that point forward, Jews just started coming into America. Why? Because we're to be a safe haven for the Jewish people during the diaspora. There's a reason we've got about 5 million Jews in this country right now, only to be topped by Israel recently, getting about 6 million Jews in there. Do you realize the next closest country to have Jews in it is France, with about 483,500 Jews? We've got 10 times as many Jews in this country as any other nation, and it falls off dramatically from the other ones. We were to be involved in, God knew that in 1948, God being omniscient, knowing the end from the beginning, he realized that in 1948 that Israel was going to be rebirthed as a nation. And who was in line? Of course, the UN Resolution 181, the partition plan of 1947, one of the strongest world leaders at that time, who won in a shocking victory over Dewey, no one expected him to win, was Harry S. Truman. And Harry S. Truman was one of the strongest pro-Israel leaders on the world scene at that time. And so we were instrumental in the reestablishment of the nation of Israel. But the beacon of Christianity to the nations of the world, obviously we were. We were a Christian nation, founded upon those precepts. We sent missionaries out in the 1800s and 1900s all over the world, and in fact we still are. So we have been fulfilling those 3 purposes, but we have kicked God out of our schools, out of our culture. Now we've got abortions running rampant. We've got homosexuality. We have a president who's saying we're no longer a Christian nation, but a nation of Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, non-believers. Most pro-abortion, anti-Israel, pro-homosexual president in our nation's history. And take out the anti-Israel part, everything else he's proud of. I'm not saying something, I'm not trying to bash Obama. These are things he's actually proud of in his accomplishments and his liberalism. Yeah. So we are in trouble right now. We are gonna slide down. I still haven't answered your question yet, Joe, but I had to preface it with what our purposes were for this country. You want me to keep going?
Sure. Yeah, keep going.
All right. Now, our role, okay, in Psalm 83. As a superpower country that was supposed to bless Israel and have it be rebirthed as a nation, and I will remind your listeners that God does have foreign policy in place established 4,000 years ago for the nations. And what that is that if you bless Israel, he said in Genesis 12, verses 2 and 3, I will bless those who bless you. He's referring to Abraham. But I will curse those who curse you. And Abraham had son Isaac, a grandson Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. They became the 12 tribes of Israel, and that means the Jewish people today. If you bless the Jews, or if you bless Israel in particular today, you'll be blessed. If you curse them, you will be cursed, okay? So we have been a blessing to Israel for the most part for quite some time. And we have a superpower status, and we are to be a protectorate of Israel and be a strong shoulder, a stalwart shoulder of support for them. But let me tell you what the problem's going to be here. And I'm going to use the example of the UK. When I teach on Psalm 83, I teach Psalm 83 as a prophecy in process. We know what's going to happen. We're going to wake up one morning, and it's going to be happening. But we've seen that it's been happening since 1948, 1967, 73, those wars the Arabs had with the Jews. They weren't the fulfillment of Psalm 83, but they demonstrated a preview of Psalm 83. Compared to when Israel became a nation in 1948. The world woke up on May 14th, 1948, and whoa, there's an Israel. But for people who were paying attention, they could go back 50 years to when Theodor Herzl started the Zionistic movement in 1897. And then after World War I, when the Lord Balfour comes out with the Balfour Declaration, at the time Britain was the superpower country. The sun never used to set on the British Empire. 1917, the Balfour Declaration comes out. And Britain was called on by God to help Israel come back into the land. The Balfour Declaration was going to give Israel all of modern-day Israel today and modern-day Jordan. But you know what? They didn't do it. They did not implement that. And what happened is they subjected the Jews to the Holocaust and World War II. Now, you can watch the downward slide from 1917 to 1990. The British Empire collapsed. The sun always sets on the British Empire. All it is now is just it's an island over there in the Atlantic, off of the coast of Europe. It's unbelievable because they did not do what they were supposed to do. Now here comes America. Are we going to do what we're supposed to do? Are we going to bless Israel? Are we going to be that strong shoulder of support for Israel? I'm concerned we won't be. I'm concerned that may be why the sun is beginning to set on the superpower status of America right now. And then there's other things that could happen to even make it worse for this country, because we really pretty much have said to God, we don't need you anymore. You're no longer, thanks for all you did, but we'll see you later. We don't need you anymore. And so I think this country is being judged right now, and I don't frankly think with the present leadership we have right now, I'm not so sure they're going to do the right thing when this war starts to happen. I'm very concerned about that.
Wow. So, wow. That's a frightening thought, Bill. I mean, but it's scripturally accurate. I mean, Genesis 12:3, 2 and 3. Okay, that's. Personally, I cannot believe what I'm seeing, in the present day and age, where we have not only abandoned Israel but served as a antagonist, if you will.
Not only that, the society we live in is so ungodly, corrupt, vain, prideful, arrogant, which is why the Lord allows people like Obama to become elected, why the Lord allows the governments to become corrupted. What advice, Bill, do you give to Americans who are real Christians, who do follow the Word and know the times we're in? I mean, what can we do besides reaching out to individuals, trying to save individual souls, if anything?
Well, you start by redeeming the time as best you can, because time is short. Because we're going to start to see Bible prophecies find fulfillment soon and sequentially. Christ gave us a big hint in Matthew 24, verse 8. He said that when the end times events start to happen, he likened them to a woman about to give labor, the birth pangs that she goes through. And what we find here is that when Christ is about to return, before that time, ultimately things climax and we end up in a tribulation period of 7 years where God judges a Christ-rejecting planet. And that's mainly in the book of Revelation, through the seals and the trumpets and the bowl judgments, etc. It's a very calamitous period of time. It's tribulation period for humanity. We're not there yet. That starts when the 7-year covenant is confirmed by the Antichrist, and then there's 7 years left. But we're marching toward there. So we're going to have a Middle East war. That's going to be one of the major first birth pangs, or the early on birth pangs. Now, when a woman gives birth, and the baby's about to crown coming down the birth canal, her contractions become very intense and very frequent. More intense and more frequent, and you can't stop them, and you're not going to be able to stop that baby from coming out. So once we have a major Middle East war going on, another one's going to follow in Ezekiel 38 and 39, the Russian-Iranian-led invasion coming against Israel. Ultimately, we're going to have an Armageddon campaign. You're going to have other things going on and judgments and travails upon the earth, but they're going to be consolidated in a short expanse of time. We're not going to have another century or two, in my estimation, to redeem the time. Jesus is about to come and get his bride in what's known as the rapture of the church, where he comes in the twinkling of an eye in the clouds with the shout of an archangel and the sound of a trumpet. And the dead in Christ, those who believe in Jesus that have since passed away, are going to rise first. And those who are alive and remain, a living generation, will be caught up to be in the clouds together with the Lord. That event could happen at any given time because that's an imminent event. That's a signless event. And so we don't have a whole lot of time left when you're dealing with believers. The little bit of time we have left needs to be redeemed so that we can be effective at this point in time, because what happens when we're gone is unbelievable. Now, Jesus told us in Luke 21, verse 36, I believe, he says, this is the clue for believers. Watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that must come to pass on the earth. And so what he's talking about is watch therefore and pray always that you can escape, not endure, the things that are coming on the earth. All the things that are coming on the earth. And the only way to escape the things that are coming upon the earth is not to be upon the earth. And you pick up this also in Zephaniah 2, where Zephaniah talks about in the Old Testament about that you can be hidden from the day of the Lord. So what he's talking about is watch therefore and pray always that you can be counted worthy to escape these things that are coming. Well, yes, you watch and you pray. You watch the big signs. You watch the things we're talking about on your program, the Middle East signs, the deterioration of America, the revived Roman Empire coming into power. All these things are Bible prophecies. The church becoming apostate. These are all relative to Bible prophecies, the church becoming lukewarm. But what else we should be watching for is our immediate sphere, our family, our friends, our neighborhoods. We need to be watching what they're going through and coming alongside and being a good example for them, praying for them, witnessing to them, supporting them in any way we can. Because remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so you've got to be walking the walk. You've got to be the example for the Christians out there, because they're hungry now. There's a harvest field developing right now because people are watching the same news you and I are watching. And they're going to be watching. That Spotlight Middle East is going to be happening real quick, because what Israel just did by attacking the border over there between Lebanon and Syria, that could turn out to be a very, very big deal, and things could really quickly escalate over there.
Okay, and that we have a question from Bryce listening in Kansas, asking us to ask you, Bill, how close, and I think you just kind of answered it, how close are we to seeing what you describe as the Psalm 83 war? You know, could it be next week? Could it be within a month? Could it be...
And let me add to that, Isaiah 17, Damascus becoming a ruinous heap. We're kind of seeing that play out now. Are we not? Does that come before, during? Is it part of the Psalm 83 war?
Okay, well, let's address those couple questions there. We'll start with Psalm 83 and its imminency. Remember, it's a 3,000-year-old prophecy that has not found fulfillment. One of the parts of the prophecy says they want to destroy Israel, that the name Israel can be remembered no more, which meant that since it hadn't been fulfilled in the Old Testament, it hadn't been fulfilled up to 70 A.D. when Israel was destroyed, Jerusalem and the temple, and the Jews were sent out into the diaspora for 1,878 years. They come back in Israel in 1948. It certainly couldn't have happened between 70 AD in 1948 because there was no Israel. But now there's an Israel in 1948, so it could be happening. It could have happened any time since 1948 on. Here we are almost 65 years later, and we've seen what happened in the Arab Spring. We see what's going on in Syria. We see what's going on in Egypt. And it really looks at this point in time is that it's about to culminate in a war because there's no more land for peace deals that really Israel can deal with. Those chemical weapons, they're a very serious threat right now. They're liable to have some shot into Tel Aviv. I mean, Hamas would love to have some of those on the tips of their Fajr 5 rockets they've been getting from Iran and just shoot those things into Tel Aviv. I mean, those enemies are willing to really go after Israel at this point in time. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a 3,000-year-old prophecy, but it's a prophecy for our time. And we could wake up and as soon as tomorrow, and it could be happening. But it still could be a year or 2 or 3 down the road. But I'm not going to suggest that people take the idea that it's going to be delayed a whole long time because it really could happen quickly. But it could still be 5 or 10 years down the road. God's a very merciful God. But I think this is the prophecy to be watching for along with the rapture of the Christian church. Now, Syria. Isaiah 17, Damascus will cease to be a city. Verse 1, it'll be a ruinous heap. Verse 9, there will be desolation throughout Syria because of the children of Israel, the IDF. Verse 14 of Isaiah 17, at eventide you see Damascus, speaking of, at eventide you see him, speaking of Damascus in the male pronoun. But in the morning he is no more. This is a portion of those who rob us and a lot of those who plunder us. So Damascus gets destroyed, it gets destroyed by Israel, and it gets destroyed overnight. Now, Syria has got chemical weapons, and those chemical weapons could come into Tel Aviv. And if they come into Tel Aviv, Israel is not going to fight a protracted war. It'll be a prison rules fight. They will act decisively, and they will probably nuke Damascus. Now, the question comes up, won't that create a fallout problem for Israel if they send a nuclear weapon across the border to the northeast into Syria, into Damascus, because Damascus isn't that far from Israel? Well, the question is, the point is, if it depends on where they burst that nuclear weapon. If it's, I believe it's 40 miles up, they'll be okay, because what happens is when, like with Hiroshima and those things, what happened was when they hit so low to the ground and exploded, the mushroom went down and sucked up all the particles of the earth and brought it up into the big mushroom cloud. But if you do it just right at the right altitude, you can get down there and you can create all this damage, and you can get out of the scenario where you have a lot of radioactive fallout, if I understand that correctly. So you could see a very strategic strike on Damascus to make a major statement that we're not going to tolerate you guys coming at us with chemical weapons. And that could also happen real soon. I'm looking at that as a very real prophecy that could happen in the very near future, because Israel will not stand for. You're already seeing them reach out because they think chemicals are going into Hezbollah's hands. They're already attacking right now. So I would say if you see some major affront against Israel, especially into Tel Aviv, that has any hint of chemical weapons, I would be telling anyone you know in Damascus to get out of there as quick as possible.
Wow. So the Isaiah 17 and Psalm 83 could interchangeable. I mean, we don't. It could happen at the same time, or it could. I think I get it. Now we get another question here from Jan in Clarence, New York. Wants to know. You mentioned that following the Psalm 83 war, Israel is going to be a stronger, larger nation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, let me, before I get into answering that question, let me just remind your listeners that I actually have 2 chapters in the book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, How Israel Becomes the Next Mideast Superpower, that are exhaustive commentary on Damascus, Isaiah 17, Jeremiah 49, and elsewhere. And I get into explaining why Isaiah 17 won't happen in the tribulation, why it will probably happen in and around the Psalm 83 war. But and I also get into explaining that there are some distinctions that need to be made, because Damascus, when Asaph wrote 3,000 years ago, the psalmist, was not It was in an area called Aram, A-R-A-M. And Asaph didn't list Aram in Psalm 83. He listed Ashur, which would have been Assyria, which was Syria, northern Syria, and was Iraq. So I see Isaiah 17 happening in and around Psalm 83. It could happen as part of Psalm 83. It could happen before Psalm 83. I doubt it will happen after Psalm 83. But it could be a unique, distinct peripheral prophecy, but it should find association with Psalm 83. Now, to answer your question about the greater Israel, how Israel becomes the next Mideast superpower, let's backtrack. Ezekiel 38 and 39 tell us in verses 7 through 13 that Russia is going to form this formidable coalition, including Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Ethiopia, Tunisia, probably Algeria, the southern steppes of Russia, the breakaway Soviet republics, maybe on down through Somalia. And they're going to come against Israel, and they're going to come after Israel that's dwelling securely, which they're not right now, in the midst of the land, which is questionable what land Ezekiel was talking about. I think that would include Jordan. Without walls, bars, nor gates, and they've got a 403-mile wall right now separating out the West Bank terrorism from into Israel. But Russia's going to come after this wealthy Israel, this for plunder and great booty, safe-dwelling, very wealthy Israel. And that will be the Israel, I believe, that comes into fruition after Psalm 83. They can dwell securely. They can tear down that 403-mile wall. They can exploit air resources. And they're already a wealthy country, but they're going to be even safer and wealthier. Now, that Israel that Russia puts together with this big coalition, which, by the way, would be like America grabbing Canada and Mexico and saying, let's go take out New Jersey, because Israel's about the size of New Jersey right now. It just doesn't make any sense. Why does Russia need these big friends? Well, if Israel wins a war in the neighborhood and becomes a regional Mideast power, which prophecies suggest that will be the case, then yes, Russia will need some help. We'll need some friends to go after that Israel. Now, we have several prophecies that I point out in the book that show Israel does acquire more land. And remember, they have a precedent for doing this. They did it in 1967 after that Six-Day War. They almost tripled their size when they took over the Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Golan, and the Sinai. And they did it 3,000 years ago when King David won wars. They did it 3,300 years ago when Joshua won wars. So Israel wins wars and they take land. That's just established precedent. And they feel justified in doing that because 4,000 years ago in Genesis 15:18, God gave their patriarchal father Abraham land from the river of Egypt, the Nile, to the river Euphrates, which courses through Iraq and Syria. Israel occupies about a 15th of that much land right now, but they're going to expand after Psalm 83. They won't necessarily expand into all that territory. They'll get that when Jesus returns in the Messianic kingdom and sets up his Messianic kingdom. But they're going to grow, I believe, even in our lifetime here, guys. I think you're going to see Israel win a war, take over part of Jordan, part of southern Lebanon. Isaiah 19:18 says, in Egypt, 5 cities in the land of Egypt will speak the language of Canaan. That's Hebrew. Jeremiah 49, verses 1 through 6 says there'll be an alarm of war in Rabbah, which is northern Jordan, where the capital Ammon, Jordan is. And it says there'll be a desolate mound, and Israel will take over its possession. So we're told Israel will take over sovereignty of Jordan. Obadiah 1, verses 19 and 20 talks about Israel taking over the West Bank and taking over Zarephath, which would be southern Lebanon. So get ready, gang. I mean, this world is going to be waking up to a real shocking development probably over the next year, 2, 3, whatever it may be.
Well, indeed. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to get a copy of Bill Salus's book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, How Israel Becomes the Next Mideast Superpower. It's an incredible resource that addresses everything that we need to know about the next Mideast prophetic unfoldings and how they will affect Israel, America, and everyone listening to this program. It's that important. And Bill, you've done a tremendous job in putting together just a roadmap of what we're seeing. We've got about 4 minutes left here. It's incredible how fast the time has gone by. What are your closing thoughts? What point or points do you want to drive home here in the waning moments of the show?
Well, it's a very exciting time to be alive. We're seeing so many things happening. We're actually going to see Bible prophecies find fulfillment. I think this generation is going to be astounded to see these things happen. But like I said, they're powerful events, they're world-changing events. One builds upon another, and ultimately the world heads into the tribulation. So we don't have a lot of time left. But it always is the case. It's been this case for 2,000 years since Jesus came and presented himself to the world as the only begotten Son of God, the God who so loved the world that sent him to die for our sins, to pay that price on the cross. He's the only hope we have. And, you know, we're getting an opportunity to look around the chaos in the world, the world economies, the global financial crisis, the Arab Spring, and the false god of Allah is you know, it can't control the chaos over there. He's proving himself to be a false god. The false god of money in America is falling apart, and you know, it is such a perfect time for people to take a look around them and say, wow, you know what? Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and he said himself in John 14:6, nobody gets to the Father but through him. So I always like to close by saying, look, folks, the world is unraveling. God said it was going to unravel, which means God knows the end from the beginning, and he is still in control, and he will judge this planet. So he's still the real deal. He's still omnipresent. He's still with us. And the bottom line is he still loves us. And it's the same way of salvation through Jesus Christ. And in the book, I have an appendix that actually tells someone how they can get saved. It talks about what salvation is, how to receive the Lord. They could receive the Lord just by reading the book and paying attention to what it says. Much like Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, led many people to the Lord because inside of his book he had the gospel. And that's the bottom line, guys. I mean, Revelation 19:10 says the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. And so prophecy is exciting. It's amazing that we're watching it unfold and stage set right now.
Wow.
It all boils down to Jesus Christ the Savior.
Bill, I want to thank you so very much. Both Joe and I want to thank you so very much for being part of our program tonight. You're just a fantastic guest, and thank you for your gift to all of us. You know, the book, and folks, be sure, please get a copy of Bill Salus's book, Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, How Israel Becomes the Next Superpower.
You can find it on Amazon.com or his website, and I'm definitely going to be ordering a few of those, and not just for myself, but for others. Mr. Salus, I hope we can have you back on again when we have more time, because there's so much more to get into. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a blessing, and thank you for all the hard work you've done.
All right, guys, I'll be back. I'll be glad to be back.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Salus.
Have a good night. Folks, that does it for the Hagman Report this day, the 31st day of January 2013.
Yeah, and for those who are listening or tuned in late, I saw a lot of questions. Are we taking calls tomorrow? Free for all Friday. All the phone calls you want. We missed a lot today, a bunch of them today. So you guys who missed out getting on air today, call back tomorrow. We'll definitely take calls first.
And I'm going to be on Coast to Coast tonight for the news segment, just in case you guys are up late. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless. Stay safe, and